Imagine a Deku who refuses to be owned. The Commission wants a kill, switch. Pantheon drops spears in daylight. And Midoriya answers with one thing, choice. Today we ask, what if Deku was Son Dr Gero and build harem? So watch till end. And for more, leave a comment and like. And you can support me on my Patreon, where I upload early access video for free. Link in description.
Sirens hiccuped somewhere behind the skyline, but the city noise got drowned under engine howl. 3 armored vans chewed up lane lines on the Musutafu Expressway, plowing through late commuters like a bad dream with headlights. The lead driver saw the orange construction cones and didn't slow. He aimed for them. Cheaper than brakes, right? Metal shrieked. I hit the roof of the second van hard enough to spiderweb the windshield. The impact bucked it sideways and the driver swore at a dashboard saint. His buddy in the passenger seat shouted, "Meta killer cargo. Don't stop. Cute," I muttered, palming the roof. The heat beneath my sternum rose, steady, controlled. The core woke like a lion rolling to its feet. The van tried to juke. I walked left, then right. Bare hands biting into sheet metal. I didn't punch through. I flexed, anchored fingers in the bend of the roof seam, and pulled. Steel gave with a whalebone groan. Cold air slapped the driver's face when I tore his ceiling off. Seatbelt. Eyes wide. Reflex going for a gun. I shook my head and tapped the weapon with 2 fingers. The predictive lattice inside my skull drew dotted lines, trajectory, blowback. The guy in the sedan he'd accidentally shoot through 3 windows. "Don't," I said. He didn't. I set the roof aside, unbuckled him, and snapped the column shifter into neutral. The van screamed frustration as it fishtail-ed, then finally nosed into the guardrail, right before the third van crushed my shoulder like I'd just stepped in front of a freight train. "Rude," I grunted, pivoting. The core vented bright through my forearms. I threw my weight and the van bounced, tires kissing pavement before it slapped sideways into lane 4. The driver inside swallowed a curse and gunned it. Didn't matter. The real threat flashed up the ramp, city bus, off schedule and packed, slaloming around a jackknifed mini-truck the convoy had pinballed into. The bus clipped the STA. LLED truck and the whole world lurched toward the bridge edge. Shouting, cell phone cameras, the rumble of 100 hearts. Uraraka. I didn't look. I knew she was there from the way the air felt light by my ear. "Give me a pocket. I got you." Ochako's voice came clean and bright above the engine growl. She skated along a railing like a gymnast who'd skipped a century of training steps. Her glove brushed the bus's front quarter panel and everything about it went gentle, weight peeled off until it skimmed the asphalt like a kiss. I sprinted, stepped into oncoming disaster, braced with both palms. And let the core flood my ulna with green fire. Bone hummed. My boots chewed rubber. The bus pressed into my hands like the ocean leaning into a seawall. "Eyes on me," I told the driver through broken glass. He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. "Feet on the brake. Good. Hold." Behind me, Momo's voice cut through like a conductor's baton. "I need 3 mobile barriers and a lane seal from median to curb. Now, 8 meters. Her creation quirk blossomed into a coil of deployable fencing and road flares. 2 interns from the City Works booth, kids, at least younger than us, ran where she pointed. The way she said now made grown men sprint. The bus settled onto my palms. Ochako released gravity 1 breath at a time. I stepped forward and set the nose to road. Somebody cheered. Somebody else sobbed like their lungs had been holding a decade of fear. A black market van scraped past the scene, trying to thread the chaos and make an exit under the viaduct. I flicked my eyes. The lattice threw me a path with 3 moves and 1 stupid risk. I took it. Core surge, heel pivot, then a vault over the bus roof with my back skimming glass. Air tore at my jacket. My hand found the van's rear door. I ripped it off on the fly and threw it under the wheels. The van tripped on its own door and folded. A girl inside the mess of straps and crates moved wrong, too smooth, too ready. Blonde, a little feral around the grin, school uniform that didn't belong on this street. She saw me, saw the kid hiding under the crate, and did the math the same time I did. "Don't you dare," the smuggler hissed at her. "Knife low and dirty. Stay in character." She flashed him a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm bored of this character." The knife twitched toward the kid. I was already there. 2 fingers on the blade. A whisper of sparks. "Hey, I told him, calm like we had time to bake cookies. Not in front of a child. I tilted my hand. Metal screamed. Half a knife clattered to the floor. The blonde blinked up at me with something like surprise and something like relief. You're annoyingly hot up close, she said. Thanks for the intel, Himiko, I said, like we were discussing lunch. You want to be helpful for real. Get those straps off and get him out. She stared one beat too long at the knife stump. Then she moved. No flirty flourish, no need to be seen, just quick hands and a hushed, "Oi, kiddo. I've got you." The convoy's first van, lead car, finally decided crashing into me hadn't been profitable and tried plan B, blasting straight through the median, down the embankment, and into the underpass for a river escape. Two figures popped off the roof like lanternflies. One wore a cheap tactical harness with a rifle I didn't like. The other, make a hole. Bakugo roared, vaulting a kilometer of problems like stairs made out of explosions. He came in sideways, palms barking, sweat hissing into powder. The first roof rider fell into the lane stripe with the wind knocked out of his religion. I grabbed the second by his ankle and bounced him off the van hood. Thought you were busy, I said without looking at Katsuki. I was, he snapped, hair wild, grin feral. You're hogging the good fights. Keep the underpass clear, I told him. Evac's still moving. We're not done. He wanted to argue. He eyed the bus. He eyed Ochako, posture fierce and focused on the next hazard line. He swore. Fine. One of us has to do the boring hero work. Thank you. I meant it. He felt it. Deku. Ochako called, breath short. Two more vans inbound from the ramp. Momo had already moved. Redirect them into lane 3 and 4. Put spikes down on 5. Suppress from the median, she said into 3 open channels while shoving barrier legs into place with her shoulder. Where is Hatsume? Right here. The voice came from above, from behind, from 3 directions. 3 micro-drones whirred down like hummingbirds in a caffeine war. May crouched on a 4th drone big enough to surf. Pink hair stuck to her forehead in an affectionate mess. She grinned like God had given her a science fair. New babies. Brace pads that stick to literally anything, mobile triage anchors. And a friction web that makes physics cry. May. Yeah, seatbelts. She slung a safety harness on one-handed like she'd invented the concept. I love when you talk safety to me. A choked laugh tried to escape my chest. It came out like an exhale through clenched teeth as I stepped into another incoming van's path. The driver thought I'd flinch. I didn't. We connect. Ed, my palms and his poor front bumper, and the core kicked a slow, hungry drum behind my ribs. I slid a brace pad under the van's nose, May's friction web deployed with a snake's snap. Rubber screamed. The van skated sideways into the barrier lane Momo had locked down, bounced off, and died in the arms of 4 cops who'd decided living heroes were worth their pensions today. The blonde, Himiko, showed up at my elbow with the kid. She'd wrapped him in her own blazer so fast I wasn't sure it had happened. He has a cut, she said, not flirt, not vamp, just facts. Shallow. Scared. I looked at her. She looked back like she expected a punch and had already decided to take it smiling. I nodded toward the EMT triage line Momo had sketched with road paint and authority. That way. Stay on the sunny side of the tape. Only if you don't hand me to the suits. Earn it. She rolled her eyes and did exactly what I asked. Hun, people surprise you. A rip of wind scratched my eardrum. I glanced up. Rooftop lens. Polished. Tiny silhouette, hard to see with the naked eye unless you got help. The lattice overlaid a faint red ring around the tiny camera. Watching. My stomach went flint. Seraph 03. A voice rasped in a building stairwell that wasn't supposed to be audible from here. My hearing sharpened anyway. Target confirmed. Prime candidate. Roger, a reply breathed from the lens. Marking the heart. I didn't waste time playing Where's Waldo. I shoved the last driver into a polite coma and walked into the river of civilians with my hands up, palms open. We're good, I called, and meant the we. Walk to the curb. Follow the cones. The guy in the neon vest will tell you where to complain about your insurance. Thank you for not dying. Laughter bubbled in a few throats that needed permission. The lead van had made it to the underpass. Katsuki hadn't led it through the underpass. He'd turned the entire mouth of it into a field of glassy slag and righteous profanity. Don't melt your shoes, I told him. Stepping onto the less lava bits. Shut up. They're heat resistant. He kicked the side door of the last van open and peered in. Boxes. Fancy. Smells like commission paperwork and treason. Great smell, classic notes. I hopped in, cut a strap, and pulled a crate toward me. My hand tingled before I touched it. Not from radioactivity. From intent baked into hardware. May dropped into the van like a cat out of a shelf. Can I lick it? No. Boo. Momo crouched at the threshold, hair stuck to her cheek with sweat she didn't bother to wipe. She peeled off a glove, reached in, and hovered her palm over the crate. Heat signature. Too clean, I said. New. We cracked the lid. Inside, nestled in sterile foam, sat a matte gray cylinder with a black glass eye. It didn't hum. It didn't glow. It just waited. The engraved label didn't help. Seraph Lance Pantheon property. Beneath that, smaller, spent unit. Ochako peered over my shoulder. Spent is good, right? Yes and no, I said. The cord ticked uneasily under my heart. The predictive lattice drew a shape in the air no one else could see, this cylinder hanging in a net, falling from orbit with the clean focus of a meteor that had learned manners. I slid it back into the foam and shut the crate like I was closing a mouth with too many teeth. Bag it, tag it, don't plug it into anything. We keep it until someone with an actual court order asks nicely. Momo nodded briskly. It'll live in the guild vault with a signed chain of custody. I'll call ahead. Himiko hovered just outside the scene. Foot on the van step but weight ready to bolt. An officer clocked her and started that slow shoulder squaring cops do when they want to be seen being brave. I put a hand up. She's with me. The officer frowned. With you like with you. She just helped save a kid, I said. If you want to file, file. But nobody's dragging her over a curb today. Himiko blinked fast. You're going to get yelled at. Oh, absolutely, Ochako said, deadpan. He collects it like stamps. Rare hobby, Momo murmured, already on the phone with 3 departments. Profitable in the long run. May snapped a photo of the crate with her iCam and then of my face at 5 inches. For calibration. Of what? My crush. I opened my mouth. Nothing useful came out. Katsuki barked a laugh. So loud 2 pigeons reconsidered their life choices. At the far edge of the scene, wrapped in an expensive coat that wasn't meant to touch this much asphalt, a commission liaison watched us with a smile that didn't blink. 2 agents in suits hung just behind her shadow. The liaison made a little tap-tap motion at her wristwatch and then at me, like we had a coffee we were late for. We probably did. I held her gaze for exactly 1 heartbeat and then turned my back like I had work. Because I did. The rooftop lens winked, shifted, tracked the line of my spine like it was measuring for a suit. The lattice handed me a timestamp. A satellite pass, a bad feeling that came with clean edges. When the last ambulance rolled, when the glass stopped tinkling under tired boots, when the mop-up looked like mop-up and not triage. I let myself breathe. The core cooled back to simmer. The fans I couldn't hear unless I wanted to whispered under my ribs. They matched the rhythm of my pulse, not the other way around. That mattered. I sat on a chunk of barrier concrete. The city moved around us like a big animal deciding it wasn't dying today. Himiko ghosted up with 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee. You like it black or offended? Offend me. She handed me the worst cup. We sipped and made the same face at the same time. It was stupid. It loosened something behind my breastbone anyway. You weren't supposed to blow cover, I said quietly. She shrugged one shoulder, a quick, sharp little wing of bone. Kid had soft eyes. I hate when soft eyes go dull. Same. She stud. IED my hands like she wanted to count my scars and found that unsatisfying. That thing in your chest, she said, conversational, like we were gossiping about shoes. Is it going to eat you? I rolled the cup between my palms. Only if I feed it. Seems hungry. It is. I smiled, small and honest. I am too. She didn't ask for what. She didn't have to. The scene hummed with things we didn't say because we didn't have time. May plopped beside me, grease smear on her cheek like war paint. She shoved a little strap of carbon weave into my hand. Try this. It screws to the radius brace and dumps excess heat into the air with an ion bloom. Had to tune it after your bus thing to keep you from cooking your ulna like a hot dog. You're a poet. I'm a mechanic with a crush, she corrected, shameless. Hold still. I did. She bolted it on with gentle hands and a focus that turned the world into tightening screws. Up close, her pupils were blown wide with adrenaline and genius. She didn't shake. Better? She asked. The core answered before I did. The new strap kissed my bone with a chill that felt like a door opening into night air. Yeah, I said, easing my arm through a range of motion. Way better. She preened. Ochako rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the smile warming one corner of her mouth. Momo took a picture of the adjustment, annotated it, and then leaned against the barrier next to me with a sigh that sounded like she'd waited all day to sit down. We need to talk about the commission, she said. I know. They'll want that crate. I know. They'll want you. I know, I said, softer. To the concrete, to the hum inside me, to the shadow playing with a rooftop lens across the street. They always have. The liaison finally decided she'd done Ow meaningful staring for one afternoon and strolled over with her suits in tow. Midoriya, she sang, like we were at a gala and she wasn't wearing road dust on a $1,200 heel. Gorgeous work, truly. The city thanks you. Thank the team, I said. Of course, she said, tossing a smile at Ochako, another at Momo, a kind of bored curiosity at Mei, and a tiny inhaled pause when her gaze hit Himiko. In your expanding circle. Private citizen, Ochako said, expression politely empty. Here under our protection for questioning as a witness. Excellent, the liaison trilled. We can certainly. No, I said. She blinked like someone had swapped her coffee for vinegar. I didn't ask. You were about to. The answer's no. If you want to talk, talk through counsel, during daylight, on record. No back rooms. You're young, she said, letting the fondness drip like honey over a blade. Sometimes the real work gets done where cameras can see it, I said. Or it doesn't get done at all. Silence pressed between us for one bright second. Her smile didn't crack. It just settled. Bring the device by headquarters, she said. Chain of custody, all that. Tonight. Tomorrow. Momo said without looking up from her notes. After we finish our independent registry. And only with a neutral third-party observer. Preferably a judge. The liaison's gaze sharpened one shade harder. This city is safer because we act quickly. This city is safer because we act well, Momo said, still gentle, still lethal. And because we remember who we serve. Himiko sipped her coffee like it was tea at a fancy party. Bakugo coughed a word that sounded like bureaucrat and grenade at the same time. Somehow no one died. The liaison's smile returned to default. Tomorrow, then. She slid me a card. Nice talk, Midoriya. Likewise, I said, and let her walk away with the wind she could stomach. Not now wasn't never. We broke down cones. We stacked barriers. Maze Drive. Ones sang tired little lullabies as their batteries flagged. The sun dipped between buildings and made the river under the bridge glitter like it was laughing at us. That's when the world glitched. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just, a single green pixel blinked to life at the corner of my vision, where no HUD belonged. It didn't belong because I didn't wear a HUD. The lattice lived in me. The core sang in bone, not in glass. The pixel winked. Then it moved, drawing a line in the air that only I could see. A heartbeat curve, a gentle slope, a lullaby I half remembered and never learned. Sound SL. It into my ear like someone whispering into the back of my brain. Not a voice. Not at first. A tone. A bell made of math. And then words, because humans like those. Hello, son. The cup cracked in my hand. Coffee bled into my glove. No one else heard it, I knew they didn't. The pixel blinked again and, for a breath, the world slowed. Just half a step, just long enough for my heart to wonder if it wanted to keep time with a different drummer. Hey, Ochako's hand covered mine before I could squeeze the paper cup into confetti. Breathe with me. I did. In, out. The core threw a low growl at the thing in my vision. The thing purred back like it had time. Mei squeezed my shoulder. You good? Yeah, I lied, then downgraded it. Soon. Momo watched my eyes the way she watched contracts. You heard something. Later, I said. After we get off the bridge. Katsuki didn't ask. He just stood next to me with his arms crossed and the kind of silence you offer a friend you've punched in the face and still like. Himiko leaned into the wind, face tilted like a fox listening to a song we couldn't hear. The rooftop lens tracked me one last time, then cut out with a tiny blip that might as well have been a wink. We walked off the bridge together under a sky that had absolutely no idea what it was about to host in the next 2 days. I didn't tell them about the word in my head. Not yet. I would. Soon. The pixel hung by my eye, patient as a god with perfect posture, and then blinked out like it had never been there. The core under my sternum answered with a steady, stubborn beat that sounded like me. I chose to like that answer. Okay, I said to the day, to the river, to the liaisons card burning quietly in my pocket. Let's go tell the truth before somebody else writes it for us. About time, Momo said. Ochako bumped my shoulder. May beamed. Himiko walked exactly half a step behind and to the left like she'd figured out where we'd allow her to stand and decided not to push it, today. Katsuki cracked his knuckles. I'm bored, he lied. We headed into the mess we'd made safer. Behind us, in some clean office with glass walls and nice pens, someone wrote Ainge. LFALL on a whiteboard in neat letters and drew a line through my chest that looked like a target. In another place, one that wasn't a place, something built by a dead man and taught by the network lit a candle of code and called it mercy. I didn't know any of that in words yet. I just felt the weight of a city lean a little, like it trusted us to catch it again if it tipped. Buy you dinner? I asked the team. Only if I can expense it, Momo said. Only if it's spicy, Ochako said. Only if it's near my workshop, May said. In case of ideas. Only if I'm not on a leash, Himiko said. In case of me. Only if I can start a fight, Katsuki said, and then, because we all looked at him, with the menu. Deal, I said, and meant all of it. Somewhere behind my eyes, the pixel smiled like a cat. Hello, son. It said again, softer, like a promise it thought I wanted. Noted. I didn't feed it. We walked. The elevator doors opened and the room tried to swallow us whole. Polished wood. Soft carpets that made you feel underdressed even if you wore the moon. A skyline view that said we own all of that, and also you. A dozen smiles that had been practiced in front of mirrors paid for by taxes. The commission. Momo walked a half step ahead, briefcase in hand, hair up like a sword. I followed with my jacket zipped to my collarbone to hide a strap May had bolted on last night. Ochako stayed outside in the foyer with Himiko, witness, not bait. A guard near the door checked his watch like the show should have started 5 minutes ago. Midoriya, the chairwoman sang, standing like a swan getting applause. And Miss Yaoyorozu, thank you for coming on short notice. Not short, I said, sliding into the chair they let me have. Just inconvenient. A muscle twitched in the chairwoman's jaw and vanished like it hadn't existed. Allow me to start with gratitude. Yesterday's rescue, extraordinary. We've had an outpouring of public support. Which is precisely why we hold move fast on formalizing your partnership with the commission. She placed a slim folder in front of me. Matte paper. Gold emboss. It smelled like money trying to look like law. Momo reached for it. May I? It's for Midoriya. The chairwoman said. I'm his counsel, Momo said pleasantly, already opening it. 10 people took a breath they didn't want us to notice. I leaned back and watched the skyline. Momo didn't skim. She read, eyes darting, lips moving without sound. She clucked once under her breath, as if someone had misaligned a page number. Then she set the folder down and clicked her pen. Let's put this on the record, she said to a little black mic sitting halfway between us, like it was a lazy dog. No one spoke. She pointed the pen. Recorder on. A light blinked. The room's smiles dimmed half a stop. Clause 5, she said. In the event of threat escalation, the Hero Public Safety Commission reserves the right to place Midoriya Izuku under special deployment status, hereafter, SDS. Authorizing command override of any personal equipment or support systems. Quote. Standard during wartime, a man said at the far end, voice smooth enough to skate on. Not. Standard when it includes neurosomatic assets, Momo said. Which this does. Clause 8. Full telemetry and functional diagrams of the Infinity Core to be shared with Commission R&D. Clause 9. In case of non-compliance. Emergency shutdown authorized. Quote. The chairwoman made her eyebrows look sad. You understand, this is only in the worst case. We can't let a national asset go rogue. Why? Oh, you don't get to write asset, and then pretend it's about safety, I said. It's ownership. Just call it. Ownership implies property, she said, tone neither warm nor cold. You're a person. We respect that. Momo tapped the page. Then remove the kill switch. We can't. Then we're done, I said, standing up. A security man took 1/2 step toward his radio and stopped because my eyes found his. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flex anything. I just looked at him until he remembered he had a spine and also that he liked it not broken. Midoriya, the chairwoman said, gentle now, motherly. The way you talk to a dog edging toward the door. If you go public with an incomplete understanding of our safeguards, you'll cause panic. I'll go public with an accurate one, I said. Here's mine. I work with you when it serves the people. I bring you tech when it should be scaled. I refuse orders that violate the thing that makes me useful, my ability to choose. No back rooms. No secret switches. You want my heart in your hand. Earn it. Daylight. Cameras. Court oversight. That will slow us, she said. That will save us, Momo said. Because what you're proposing gets people's heads cut off in history books. The chairwoman's smile came back like it was bored of being off. Very well. We'll revisit after your expo demonstration today. Bring the device you recovered. We'll need to secure it. After we log it independently, Momo said. Of course, the chairwoman said, meaning no and deciding to fight that later. We left. The carpet tried to keep our footprints. It didn't. In the foyer, Ochako leaned against a column like she was relaxed, which is cute if you didn't notice the micro shifts in her ankles that put her ready to move on any vector. Himiko had our hands in the pockets of a hoodie that used to be mine and decided it looked better on her. She got a few lingering looks from Suits. She stared back until they looked at their shoes. How bad? Ochako asked. Paper claws, I said. Bring scissors, Himiko suggested. Working on it, Momo said, already texting 3 people and an entire philosophy. May waited for us outside with a helmet perched on the back of her head. Please tell me we can leave the building I hate. We're leaving, I said. Bless, she said. I wired the demo range. If nobody sues me by lunch, I'll be disappointed. Shoot for disappointment, Ochako said. May grinned like she never aimed lower than the sun. The UA Support Expo always felt like a festival someone duct taped to a science fair. Noise, neon, kids with backpacks arguing about torque, pros with clipboards pretending not to be dazzled, reporters hunting for soundbites that didn't soundbite. Booths splashed look what I made across a floor big enough to land a small plane. May dragged me toward a fenced arena with target towers that rose like game bosses. Okay, new regulator run. I tuned heat sinks to your last save. Also the vector response is friendlier. If you don't burst into flames, that's a win. If you do, also data. Try to aim for win 1, I said, shrugging out of my jacket. Ochako slipped fingers under the strap on my forearm. Checking the bolts May had torqued. She didn't say be careful. She said, tell me if your hand's numb. I can bleed your weight if the load spikes. Got it. Momo held out a pair of ear muffs. I took them. She kept them in her hand a second longer than polite. The pause said everything the room didn't need to hear. I nodded and slid the muffs on. May hit the arena PA. Crowd. I'm me. I Hatsume and this is my favorite test dummy. I have a name, I said into my mic. Yeah, May said cheerfully. Data. Okay, targets moving. Remember, don't die. Metal discs popped up on rails, zigzagging. Drones the size of bowling balls audited my face with sudden affection. I breathed, opened the core to a measured burn, and moved. It wasn't a showy thing. No fireworks. Just rhythm. Step. Align. Output. Green tore through the air in tight cones that shaved corners off fast-moving steel. The regulator took the heat off my bones and fed it into the air with a whisper and a hiss. Each shot left a clean hole right where a villain's toy would have been ugly. The crowd roared when I threw a burst around an obstacle and cut a drone in half without touching the obstacle. They roared louder when I let a disc get too close. Ducked so it skimmed hair, then tapped it with 2 fingers to flip it neatly into a net Momo had anchored because she anticipated me showing off. May stomped the Roan surfboard throttle and zipped around the arena, yelling measurements. Ochako caught an incoming foam block and rotated it 90 degrees in the air so it became a shield that I vaulted. We made it look like we practiced this. We didn't. We just trusted each other with our next seconds. Then the lights stuttered. Not a little. A full blink, long enough to make the crowd inhale. The target rails stilled. Reporters turned their cameras toward the ceiling because people love filming power outages. A noise like a hive waking up chewed through the south wall. Drones. Not ours. They float in a column that kept changing shapes, square, spear, cloud, because that's how you confuse people with eyes. Red ink logos on the belly plates, 2 R's braided into a snake. Red ribbon. Cute. Hello, Tokyo West. A voice sang over the expo PA. Not the school's voice. This one oiled your ears. Dr. Hachi here with a public service announcement. When a dead man makes a masterpiece, vultures shouldn't hoard the bones. Air. The voice purred at me, like we had brunch plans. I don't need your signature. Just your chest. May's smile vanished. Ochako's stand changed, feet whisper close to mine without touching. Momo said, lockdown. And 10 students not even on our side of the arena snapped gates shut like they'd been waiting to prove they could drill. The drones dove. I didn't talk. My brain drew lines faster than words. I punched into one cluster with a tight burst, then cut my output to slip between 2 others and hit the third from the side no pilot expects. The regulator sang. The crowd screamed in that way people do when they're having fun in a way that might become not fun. May threw a friction web across the floor. The first wave stuck like flies to flypaper. Ochako tilted. The room so the stuck ones slid into a pit sheet unweighted like it was a feather bucket. Momo created a broom as big as a car and swept 3 more into a net with neat, decisive flicks like she'd cleaned up worse messes at board meetings. I went for the sound booth. Hachi had set up behind the PA rig like a gamer who never touched grass. He was round in the ways that suggested addiction to sitting and cruelty. His hands danced over a console that wasn't supposed to exist in a school. 4 more columns of drones unstacked behind him, humming on a thin leash. Hi, I said, stepping into his light. He flinched like the dark had just answered back. You, how? Door. I broke his console with 2 fingers and then took the cable that ran from it to a big gray case and kinked it at a nice 90. Static popped. The drone column wavered. Hachi slammed a big orange button and a second case in the corner cracked open. The thing inside wasn't a drone. It was a person. It was a person with a number stenciled on the shell. And you could tell the number mattered because the air noticed. She awoke like someone told a story that hooked her from sleep. Pale hair. Blue eyes that filed everything in the room like evidence. A slow inhale that wasn't surprised, just awake. She stepped out of the pod without looking at the man who'd brought her to show and tell. Her gaze found me. So methy. Ing lived behind her pupils for about a half second. A flicker. A green pinprick in a blue sea. The core rose like a wolf. I didn't move. She slid into a stance that wasn't flashy but would get your nose broken if you blinked. The small crowd near the booth forgot to breathe. Designation, she said. Izuku, I said. You. She clipped the answer like it didn't need extra, lazily. Hachi thrust a hand between us. Waving a fob like a bell at a cat. Unit LN18, confirm directive, retrieve the core. She didn't even look at him. She raised her hand, palm sideways, fingers lax, and tapped his shoulder once. He crumpled neatly. Not dead. Not lucky either. Data, she said, stepping in. Please fight me. Crowded, I said. Then be efficient. No speeches. No dance. She was fast. Heel to jaw, pivot, palm to ribs. The rhythm tried to catch me off beat. I caught her foot, felt the line of force in her ankle as a clean wire, and redirected it around my hip. She rolled with it, use the spin to slide her other foot under my center. Good. Better than my third-year self. She would have murdered my second-year self. We traded 10, 15, 20 beats without breaking anything that couldn't be replaced. May hovered out of frame, eyes bugging with 100 ideas. The crowd had gone quiet the way people do when they see 2 professionals play chess with knives. Lazuli threw a hand chop at my neck that would have dented rebar. I caught her wrist in a brace that kissed bone and let the core push just enough to light our hands. Green climbed my forearm like ivy. Her palm glowed pale like a star seen through water. You're holding back, she said. Civilians, I said. That slowed something in her eyes. Just a fraction. A new calculation. She took a step back, dropped her hands, and bowed half an inch. Accepted, she said. Hachi groaned on the floor like a man being dragged through a math problem he didn't like. He found his fob and mashed another button that a decent person wouldn't keep around. The drone columns shifted from tidy to rabid. Their rotors screamed discord. They didn't come for me. They went for the stands. My stomach fell through the floor. Lazaly's eyes snapped up. May, I shouted. I see it, she yelled, throwing a new switch I'd never seen before. A lattice of invisible fields crackled into place over the bleachers with a snap that lifted my hair. The first drone in the wave hit the grid and fell in a shower of sparks like a bad idea getting rejected by a committee. The second hit harder. The third found a hole. Ochako was already in the air. She tapped the drone with a finger and it turned into a balloon, docile and silly. A little kid reached for it and she grinned, spun it like a globe, and shoved it into a trash net. Momo built an industrial rake in 2 seconds flat and whipped it through the air like she had practice cleaning up messes made by men with toys. I launched, cut a lane, and dove straight for the ugliest cluster. The regulator sang. Heat rolled off my skin and vented into the air in a shimmer you could taste if you had the wrong kind of mouth. We burned the wave down to scrap in a minute that felt longer. Lazaly didn't join the killing. She watched me, watched where my eyes went first, watched the way I never let the fight pull me away from the worst place a blade could land. Her head tilted like you do when a song changes key and you hadn't noticed until it hit your chest. The last drone died on my palm, rotors coughing bloodless. I set it down instead of throwing it. Little choice, big message. The room exhaled. Reporters forgot how to talk for 5 seconds, which is a miracle in any city. Security stormed the booth. Hachi tried to bark orders and mostly spit on himself. He pointed at Lazaly, at me. At the fob like it would save him. It didn't. And then the commission arrived, because of course they did. Same smile liaison from the bridge. New shoes. She clapped once, a tiny purr. Functory sound that made hands twitch toward cuffs. Excellent response, she said. Now, 2 items. First, that device you recovered yesterday belongs in secure custody. Second, Miss Toga is wanted for questioning. Himiko froze mid-slink near a column. She hadn't been near any control surfaces. She'd been handing out water cups to kids with wide eyes and shaky legs. She stared at the liaison like a cat cornered by a dryer. Questioning on what grounds? Momo asked. Calm, sharp. The liaison's smile flicked toward Toga like the beam of a flashlight. You don't point at human faces if you respect them. History. We have to be thorough. You want to be thorough. I said. Start with the man who brought an illegal drone swarm into a school. We'll be doing both, she said. Agents took a step. I stepped too. If you put hands on her, I park my license and explain your SDS clause on live camera in the middle of the expo. I will be very thorough. The room tightened around the words. People who weren't supposed to be hearing any of this heard all of it. The liaison didn't blink. Empty threats are for children. They're not empty, Ochako said, gliding between Toga and the agents without looking like she'd moved. And we're not children. Momo handed the liaison a printed summary. I didn't see her print. Here's a witness statement template. Toga can fill it out with counsel after her medical check. She helped today, documented. You will not detain her. You will not harass her. You will not try to score points with a press you pretend to hate. Agents looked at their boss. She decided to keep the day from becoming a headline about her. Fine, she said, which meant not fine but not today. The device, then. Bring it by. Tomorrow, Momo said. The liaison's eyes cut to the corner where a crate sat under 3 locks and a very pretty chain of custody seal. She held my gaze. She left again, a tiny storm wrapped in expensive fabric. Hachi got dragged out muttering about genius unappreciated. Students cheered the moment the door shut because sometimes kids know exactly what to celebrate. Lazaly's gaze tracked the crate for half a second and then snapped a way like someone had lit a match in her iris. A green pixel pricked blue and died. Her fingers curled once, hard, like she'd almost crushed a fly she didn't want to admit she saw. You okay? I asked quietly. Yes, she said. A lie that insulted both of us. She corrected it. Soon. May hovered at her shoulder like a mechanic assessing a machine that was also a friend. If you feel weird in the next 2 hours, tell me. Weird how matters. Understood, Lazaly said. Reporters found oxygen again. They surged toward the fence. Mics flew. A dozen questions piled on top of each other and became static. I walked to the barrier and put both hands on it, palms open. What you saw, I said into the wall of noise, wasn't luck. It was a team. Support inventors, rescue training, security who actually listen, and yes, heroes. That's what works. Not secret leashes. Not panic. We'll log the illegal tech we found and hand it off with proper oversight. In daylight. Are you under commission control? A guy shouted. No, I said. And left it at that. Another reporter yelled, who's the blonde? And that was the moment Himiko flipped her hood up and drifted out of line of sight like fog. Ochako's mouth twitched. Workshop. May asked, already walking. Workshop, I said. We locked the booth. We locked the crate. We ate noodles standing up behind a 3D printer while a fan pushed hot air around in a circle. Toga perched on a toolbox like a crow and pretended she wasn't coiled. Lazuli leaned against a metal shelf like she'd never leaned in her life and was trying it out. Helps, I told her, tapping the shelf. What does? She asked, leaning. Reminds your muscles you're not a spear all the time. She considered the information like a lab result and then allowed 2 centimeters more of her weight to trust the shelf. Progress. May rolled a cart over and started scanning Lazuli's arm with a wand that beeped like gossip. Any hooks? She asked, not coy. Legacy routines, Lazuli said. Her tone was flat, but her eyes weren't. They tried to move. I told them, no. Quote, if they try again, May started. They won't, Lazuli said. A flicker. Blue irises edged green for a single breath. She closed her eyes. Her fists trembled once. Okay, I said, stepping in, not to fix it, not to command, just to be a real body in the room that wasn't asking anything from her. Hear me. She opened her eyes. If someone, inside you pushes, and you want it out, you say my name and I show up, I said. No leash, no orders. Just an answer. Why? She asked, not suspicious. Just curious like the question deserved a reason. Because people did that for me, I said. Because I like what you chose when you could have chosen to hit me harder. Because a dead man's code doesn't get to write you. Silence landed like a soft thing. Toga swung her foot. Ochako blew on her noodles. Momo took notes she didn't label. May pushed the wand to my wrist and beaked me out of habit. Lazuli nodded, small. Accepted. Quote. A phone buzzed on Momo's hip. She glanced and her mouth tightened. Pantheon chatter, she said without being dramatic. Public feeds spiking with, God-tier mitigation, essays. Think tanks releasing white papers that all sound like they were written in the same room. Were they? Ochako asked. Probably, Momo said. My neck prickled. The rooftop lens F-ROM yesterday showed up in my head uninvited. The green pixel that had said hello hummed in some corner of my awareness like a fridge you can only hear at night. Let them write, I said. We're busy actually saving things. Somewhere else, a man watched the expo footage 3 times. He sat in a room with lights that didn't cast shadows and screens that didn't reflect eyes. Archon Helion. Hee-haw. The expression of someone who chewed glass and told himself it was breakfast. He watched me hold a bus, then a life, then a line. He watched the way I refused a door that would have made things easy and wrong. He looked at the canister label, Seraph Lanced Spent Unit, and didn't like the word spent when it came to weapons. He drew a circle around my chest on a freeze frame and wrote, Core. Angelfall, said the analyst behind him. Voice neutral because people learn to be neutral when they stand near men who move armies. In 48 hours, Helion said. Daylight. Distributed points. No C. Ivalian fatality model above 2%. Possible with city consent, the analyst said. Do it without, Helion said. He didn't sound cruel. He sounded tired and convinced. If he's a god, we remind him he can bleed. He shut the file and let the silence be his prayer. By late afternoon, security had turned the expo back into a carnival that smelled faintly of solder and sweet buns. Kids laughed again. Pros took notes they'd pretend they invented a year from now. We wheeled the crate into the guild vault. Momo logged it on 3 systems and printed labels like she was feeding a very small, very precise dragon. The chain of custody form looked smug. The judge request went out with a polite subject line and teeth hidden inside. Himiko drifted to the vault door but didn't cross it. Never liked boxes, she said. Door stays open, Ochako told her, and meant it wider than the sentence. Toga's mouth did a weird thing that looked like thanks and a joke stapled together. You're all very stupid, she said. I hope it works. Same, I said. Lazuli tested the bend in an elbow she hadn't asked permission to own until today. I would like coffee, she said, like a person who had decided to participate in a ritual she'd only watched. Hot or offended? Himiko asked. Offended, Lazuli said after considering her options. May clapped. Oh my god, best friends. We didn't fix the city. We didn't fix the commission. We didn't fix the part in me that hummed when a pixel blinked hello. That would take more than noodles and jokes in a one-afternoon victory. But we made the next move, and we made it honestly. Outside, the sky went from blue to gold like a time lapse somebody forgot to speed up. My phone buzzed with 3 messages from good people who didn't trust institutions and trusted us anyway. I answered all 3, we're okay. Then I put the phone in a drawer and locked it because some fights are better without spectators. Tomorrow, Momo said, closing the vault log with a finality that would make any auditor weep with joy. Tomorrow, Ochako echoed, tapping her knuckles against mine. Tomorrow, May sang, already sketching a new heat sink on my forehead. With a marker like my skin was a whiteboard. Tomorrow, Himiko said, mostly to herself, like she wanted to believe in that word and was willing to test it. Lazuli tasted her coffee like a scientist performing a delicate experiment. This is terrible, she said. You'll love it, I promised. She sipped again. Perhaps. The pixel in the corner of my head blinked once and went dark like it was deciding how to introduce itself next time. I breathed and didn't let my pulse count to its tempo. I let it count to mine. We packed gear. We laughed at jokes that wouldn't make sense written down. We walked out together. Somewhere above the city, a satellite changed orbit without filing paperwork. We had noodles in our stomachs and grease on our sleeves and a plan that included daylight and stubbornness. It would have to be enough, until it wasn't, and then we'd build more. Dinner? I asked. Only if the table is round, Momo said. Only if I can sit on it, May said. Only if I see and rob the place with my smile and then pay anyway, Himiko said. Only if they have bad coffee, Lazuli said, like a dare. Ochako bumped my hip. Only if we toast to not being owned. Deal, I said. We left the lights behind and stepped into air that smelled like the street, sun on concrete, fry oil, old stories. The kind of air that didn't care about crowns on paper. Lunch hour had the city. Loud and careless when the first spear scratched the sky. No warning siren, no hero channel ping, just a silver nail drawing a white seam through blue, falling too straight to be weather, too calm to be an accident. People looked up with fries in their hands and forgot to chew. Vector pocket, I said, already running. Ochako. Now. Her glove brushed my arm, then the air itself. Weight bled out of the spear's path. A soft valley for it to slide into. It screamed quieter than it should have. I cut left, boots hammering the roofline, and the core hit a clean tone in my ribs like a tuning fork begging to sing. 3 more, Momo said in my ear. No drama. Just numbers. Southwest Ward, Hospital Corridor, East Rail Hub, River Locks. Split, I said. Bakugo, Todoroki, you're with Momo on the rail hub. You two make it boring. Bakugo spat a laugh. Never. Then make it safe. I vaulted a stairwell gap. May, heat control. If the core redlines, you pull me back. Rude that you'd assume I'll let you die, she said. Already sprinting toward the workshop van she'd illegally parked on a sidewalk. Give me 10 seconds, I'll give you a miracle. Toga, I said. I'm listening, shish. Murmured from somewhere in the crowd where eyes slid off her on purpose. River locks. Get me all the doors without tripping alarms. Doors are my love language, she said. On my way. Lazuli, I said, looking up as the second spear brightened, angling for the children's wing of West Mercy. Catch with me. She landed beside me from a higher roof like gravity had asked permission and she'd said no. Understood. The third spear tore past a billboard and howled. The sound cut through teeth. Commission is asking for workstation feeds, Momo said as she ran. Denying for now. Deny, I said, and jumped. The first spear hit the vector pocket Ochako had set like a mattress for an angry god. It slowed enough for me to get both hands under its nose and shove. The core lit my bones. The regulator on my forearm hissed, venting heat in a white halo. Careful, May snapped over the channel. You're cooking your ulna again. Tell my ulna to relax, I grunted. The spear slid sideways, riding Ochako's gravity like a surfboard. Lazuli blurred in with a heel drop that would have broken an armored car. Metal screamed and the tip sheared off in a tidy triangle that missed the street by a hair. We threw the shard into an empty lot that used to be a building and now was a very surprised crater. People finally screamed like their nervous systems had caught up. Second spear, Momo said. Hospital, 20 seconds. Go, I told Lazuli. Take the sky. I'll push from ground. She didn't salute. She didn't need to. She just went up like she was born in thin air. I hit Street L. Evil at a dead sprint and threaded the kind of traffic that thinks heroes should teleport. The hospital rose like a glass prayer on the corner. The spear above it didn't care about prayers. Ocha. Already there, she said from the roof edge, hair stuck to her cheek, eyes steady. She pressed both hands outward and the world went smudgy around the spear. Its path warped. People on the roof staggered, she didn't. 5 seconds, she whispered. I can't hold it longer without bleeding. I'm here. I jumped the last 2 stories because stairwells are for slow days. The spear hit my hands harder than the bus had. The core flared, hard and hungry. The regulator yelled. Skin smelled like metal. I fought the urge to jam output past the safe line. The last time I did that, my fingers shook or 3 hours and May threatened to weld me to a chair. Now, Ochako gritted through clenched teeth. I rolled my wrists, redirected, and shoved. The spear kissed the hospital roofline, skimmed, and then pitched into the emergency lot where the ambulances weren't because Momo had sent a, "This is fine but don't be there," text to dispatch 4 minutes ago. It buried itself halfway in asphalt, hissed steam, and died with a sulk. 2 of 3, I said, and then felt the city tilt in my skull toward the east. Rail hub. Todoroki iced the track, Bakugo broke the angle, Momo said, a tiny thread of pride coloring her voice. Diverted to the maintenance yard. No casualties. Good, I said. River. Locks open, Toga breathed, delighted like a kid who'd picked the right safecracker wheel on a first try. Boats are through. Clear water. I had to pretend to be a board intern named Makoto. Be nice to Makoto later. Makoto just saved a chunk of the city, I said. Buy her a coffee she won't like. Affirmative. A quiet beat. Then the sky changed. Not cloud. Vectors. A lattice of white lines drew themselves into place, visible because the air wanted them visible. A dozen silver spears reoriented as one. Angling down and out like a halo with bad intentions. Headlines in waiting. The kind of beauty that gets people to forgive horror if you let it. Helion walked out of a till. T rode her as if he had a right to put feet on the air. That was the trick, he didn't fly so much as step. His harness wore micro-thrusters the size of prayers and the shape of function. He had a face that didn't have room for smugness. He had a jaw that said he slept in his suit and ironed it with regret. Midoriya, he said. Not loud. The comms carried it anyway. Stand down. We faced each other mid-city. Half a block apart and 30 meters up. He didn't aim a gun. He didn't need to when the sky was full of them. People are below us, I said. Yes, he said. Which is why I'm giving you a choice, and not just a solution. He flicked 2 fingers. The halo of spears synced a degree tighter, like geese learning to fly better. Surrender your heart. We put it in a room where it can't decide to kill the world. Or we remind you can bleed and hope pain teaches humility. You ever meet a god? I asked. More than one, he said. They all made the same mistake. They thought the world needed them. It needed what they did, until it didn't. But they couldn't stop. I wanted to dislike him. He wouldn't let me. Last chance, he said. I'm keeping my heart, I said. I'll prove I deserve it by who I save. Something in his eyes softened a millimeter. He lifted a hand. Angels, he said, and the sky answered. The first wave broke for the river locks, Toga's cleared lanes now a liability. She swore and sprinted, feet barely touching service ladders. I can reclose some gates, she panted. But not enough. I'll take the river, Lazuli said, and vanished like a switch flipped. Rails, Momo ordered. Katsuki. Shoto, 2-minute burn, intercept vector 19. I don't speak boring, Bakugo said, already moving. Go where Shoto points, Momo said. Fine. Ochako, I said. Give me bubble pockets at 12, 3, and 9. She gave me 4 without comment because she knew I'd ask for a 4th when I saw the angle. I climbed. The spears weren't dumb, they corrected around my approach. I cut with narrow bursts, the regulator screaming at me to respect bones. I respected them enough to keep them intact. I did not respect the spears. May's van screeched into a no parking zone that hadn't met her before. She climbed to the roof with a coil of conduit and an expression I'd only ever seen on people who were about to propose and on engineers who were out to break a rule of thermodynamics for 5 seconds. Line up, she yelled. I can skim heat if you give me a node. There, Momo said, planting a collapsible mast like a flag on an apartment roof. Live, May clipped in, flipped 2 toggles, and electricity tasted the air like ozone with teeth. My regulator's tone dropped half an octave. The bloom of heat around my arms thinned. Breath got easier. Love you, I said without thinking. Later, she said, cheeks bright, hands steady. Keep breathing. The city became a math problem we solved with sweat and shoes and stubbornness. Todoroki iced a beam path until it snapped. Then used the steam to hide a second move. Bakugo punched a spear downward into a park fountain and then went chest deep himself to keep the splash from being shrapnel. Ochako juggled 3 weights in a bus full of kids because she didn't know how to drop anything she cared about. Momo fabricating on the run looked like a magician who'd replaced rabbits with scaffolds and good sense. Helion watched all of it and didn't smirk when we almost ate it twice. Better than expected, he said. To me, you're making it worse by fighting where I can't predict your waist. You're making it worse by assuming I'm waste, I said, and dove for the spear that had threaded every gap we'd left like it had a grudge and a map. It aimed for West Mercy again. Not the roof this time. The pediatric wing. 4th floor, east wall. Ochako, pivot, I said. 3 seconds, she said, voice tight. It's heavy. May. Regulator to 12, she snapped. You're going to hate this. She was right. The core rolled into overdrive when I shoved past the margin my body liked. Pain got bright and honest. The world narrowed to the vector between my hands and a tip meant for a bed with small stickers on it. Don't, I told the spear. I didn't shout. I didn't have the breath. I just meant it so hard the core answered with a sound I'd never heard. Green wasn't a color anymore. It was pressure. It filled my arms, lit up nerve endings like a city grid, and tried to eat me. The regulator took a bite back. May screamed triumph at her equipment like you do when it tells you it can. Ochako hit the last micro pocket dead center. Momo made a coolant line from nowhere and fed it into the mast. Now, she yelled, and the word slammed me back into my bones. Lazuli drive. Opt out of the sky and clamped both hands on my shoulders like a human breaker bar. The angle changed. The spear skated along my palms, scraped a 4-meter groove in external brick, and went screaming into empty air where there used to be a helipad. It detonated 2 blocks later in a ball of sun that turned windows into opinions. I knelt. Not because I wanted to. Because my knees forgot they worked. Hey, Ochako said. Kneeling with me, palm on my cheek, weight bleeding out of the air around my shoulders like she could carry some of it for a second. Stay here. Here, May said, dropping down on my other side with a mess of fins she bolted to my wrist in breaths. I need your hand. I need you to not shake. I can do that, I lied. You're awful, she said affectionately, and tightened the last screw. Momo pressed a bottle of water into my hand and then leaned into my line of sight like a goddamn lighthouse. Look at me, she said. In, out. You overshot by 23%. We're venting it. I breathed because she told me to, and because my body wanted to keep making choices. Helion descended to our height and hovered there like a punctuation mark. Overdrive, he said, not impressed. Not disgusted, cataloging. You will not survive a habit of that. I don't intend to, I said, voice raw. But those kids intend to keep having birthdays. He gestured. 4. Spears pivoted toward the river locks where Toga was mid-swear on a catwalk, trying to force a manual wheel that had rusted the year she was born. Too many, Momo said. We can't intercept them all. Then make the water a pillow. I said. That's not how water, she started. Ochako, I said. On it, she said without needing the rest. She turned the river into a lake of not quite water. The surface got thoughtful. The first spear that hit it paused like it had forgotten why it was angry. The second made a crater and then fell asleep. The third dug deep and came up sputtering. Lazuli. dropped on the fourth like a guillotine blade and cut it into clean thirds that died with a hiss and a sigh. Helion exhaled through his nose. This city loves you, he said. It loves not dying, I said. Same thing, he said. Which almost made me like him. He blinked, his eye display flickered. A message fed across his iris and left nothing on his expression. Angels, he said again. The Ast wave reoriented and dove for the power substation west of the central grid. That wasn't a spectacle. That was a knife for the city's throat. Go, I said, standing on legs that wanted to be furniture. All of you. And you? Ochako asked. Helion and I need to talk. She didn't argue. She touched my wrist, quick and warm, and left because trust is proof, not a word. Helion and I hovered in the noisy space between skyscrapers while a city tried to live. You see the world like a storm you can surf, he said. I see the world like a machine that breaks if two cogs decide to spin faster than the belt. I'm not a cog, I said. You're a belt, he said. That's worse. The next 30 seconds were pure math with fists. He wasn't flashy. I liked that about him. He didn't waste movement. He used his rig like a sparring partner and a tool, not a god suit. He threw me at a line of drones to make me choose, block or redirect. I redirected. He smiled like that had been the real test. A glint to my left. A tiny thing with a cherub face painted on the shell brushed my regulator and popped like a soap bubble. A prickled burn ran up the strap. I filed it. I did not flinch. The fight didn't leave room for flinching. Stand down, he tried again. Tell your angels to land, I countered. His jaw worked, that tired muscle. No. Then we keep dancing. We did, calf deep in wind and stubbornness. He tagged me twice with jabs that would have hurt a normal man bad. I tagged his rig with a palm that told it I saw its balance. We parted because the grid substation lit up with AS. Unburn and both of us were stupid enough to care more about that. Go, he said. After you, I said, and we both moved. The team smothered the substation wave in a mess of foam, ice, borrowed fire. And an emergency breaker may pulled that the city didn't know it had. The lights across 6 blocks flickered, thought about dying, and decided not to. Pantheon angels climbed for altitude. Helion backed toward his bird. His eyes landed on me one last time. Midoriya, he said. Prove it again tomorrow. I plan to, I said. He took the sky with a command that wasn't a shout and vanished into a corridor of safer air. I didn't cheer. Momo didn't either. Ochako sank onto a railing with her shoulders shaking from effort and adrenaline. Bakugo cursed at a traffic cone like it had offended the concept of sidewalks. Todoroki sat on a curb and blinked slowly like a cat that had cooled its core and wasn't going to stand up until standing mattered. The sirens changed. Not incoming. After. A lot of after. We chose a roof with a flimsy garden where a man named Kenji grew tomatoes on his days off and read murder novels because he liked the part where the detective was honest. He waved us U.P. with a hand that shook and then pretended he wasn't crying while he foisted warm, sun-weary cherry tomatoes into our palms like trophies. Payment, he said. Accepted, Momo said solemnly. We sat down because standing is a lie. I let the core hum find the low register again. May prodded my forearm and frowned at a small blister I hadn't noticed. You got kissed by something, she said. See the residue on the strap. Too clean. Manufactured annoying. Pantheon toy. Ochako asked, sucking tomato juice off her thumb. Cute. I'll scrape it later, May said. For now, you're not allowed to glow. I'll stick to handsome, I said. Don't overreach, Bakugo muttered, but too tired to make it bite. Himiko climbed the last rung of the fire escape and sprawled, a glitter of stolen keycards in her pocket like a magpie. I stole 2 passwords and a stale donut, she announced. You can thank me with a nap. Thank you, I said. She smiled at the concrete, weird and private. Lazily. Watched the skyline like she expected it to move. She leaned, just barely, against an AC unit because earlier I'd said leaning was allowed. Progress felt small and gigantic at the same time. Helicopters thumped far away. The city tried to pretend it was a normal afternoon with an unusual number of scorch marks. Okay, I said. No speech. Just a thing we had to say out loud before someone else wrote it wrong. We need to talk about us. Quote. Ochako didn't fidget. Momo didn't straighten. May didn't make a joke. Himiko didn't flip a coin. Lazuli didn't blink. We work together like a person with 5 limbs, I said. I like you. In the same sentence where I want to keep this city breathing, I want to keep choosing you. If we do that, it's not a trophy case. It's not a secret. It's not a leash. It's adults with jobs trying to do a stupidly hard thing on purpose. Momo exhaled like a laugh that had a map. Ground rules, she said. Consent first, always, Ochako said. Yes means yes. No means no. Check-ins are real, not performative. No surprises with media, Mei said, ticking points with a grease-stained finger. We tell the story before they do. I get to keep my weird, Himiko said. No sanding me into nice. If I mess up, you tell me like you expect better, not like you're done with me. No control hooks, Lazuli said quietly. No code that outtranks my mouth. Same for me, I said. And meant the line as deep as bone. We schedule time because if we don't, the city eats it. We don't apologize for work, but we don't use it as a wall. We don't rank each other by screen time. If it stops being good for you, you say so. We adjust or we stop. Silence that wasn't awkward, just thick with choice. Okay, Ochako said, eyes bright. Okay, Momo echoed, a smile like steel reaching body temperature. Okay, Mei said, eyes wet and unembarrassed. Also I want to kiss you later when you're not crispy. Okay, Himiko said, baring teeth that looked a lot like honest. I'll probably bring knives to dates. I promise to use them only for food. Acceptable, Momo said dryly. Lazuli's mouth did something that wanted to be a smile and wasn't sure how. Okay, she said. I will learn what coffee I hate the least. Kenji pretended to water basil 15 feet away and sniffled quietly. I leaned back on my hands and let my pulse finally stop trying to sprint. The resettled against my sternum like a cat deciding to stay. The pixel that had said hello 2 days ago didn't show up. I didn't miss it. Mei peeled the regulator strap back a centimeter and scowled. Seriously, though, some cherub popped your brace. I'm scraping this later. Might be nothing. Might be rude. Nothing is rarely nothing, Momo murmured, eyes on the city. Hey, Ochako said, nudging my shoulder. We did good. We did, I said. Tomorrow, we do better, Bakugo grunted, and somehow that counted as a toast. Phones buzzed with the kind of messages people send when they watch the IR street almost get erased and then somehow not. Photos started to go up of spears kissed into weird new shapes by physics and panic. Helion's name hit a few feeds and got yelled at by people who sue. Elle didn't agree if he was a monster or a medic with a hammer. I didn't answer anything. I didn't look for the rooftop lens. I watched a kid in a window across the street hold up a hand-painted sign that said thank you in marker letters that got smaller when he ran out of space. I waved back. He screamed like a kettle. Kenji finally looked over at us and said, I'm making onigiri. Don't argue. Never, Momo said, standing up. Chef's orders. We ate onigiri off napkins like royalty and grease monkeys. We let the city's hum tuck itself back into alleyways and vents. We let our ribs remember they weren't bellows. Across town, in a room where the lights didn't cast shadows, Helion stood very still while a tech ran a diagnostic. Ragnarok handshake confirmed, the tech said. Payload dormant until trigger conditions. 0 civilian exposure vector. Helion closed his eyes the way you do when you hate the step you're about to take and you're going to take it anyway. We do not trigger unless we have to, he said. Yes, Archon, the tech said. He looked at the screen where my hands held a spear like a promise. He didn't smile. He didn't scowl. He wrote a note only he would read. If he keeps choosing people, delete it. Back on our roof, the sun leaned toward late. Lazuli attempted a joke about tomatoes and failed. Himiko laughed anyway on purpose. Mei stole my empty water bottle. To turn into a prototype because she refuses to let garbage be alone. Ochako's shoulder pressed warm against mine. Momo's knee bumped my boot and stayed there. No speeches. No vows. Just the kind of quiet you fight for. Dinner? I asked. Only if I can argue with the waiter about napkins, Momo said. Only if they have a socket I can borrow, Mei said. Only if I can pay with a stolen commission credit, Himiko said, eyes wicked. Only if you don't, Momo said, not looking up. Fine, Himiko sighed. I'll pay with cash. Only if the coffee offends me, Lazuli said. Guaranteed, Ochako said. I know a place. We stood. Kenji saluted us with a watering can. The city did not collapse. The sky kept being bigger than us and also ours. We climbed down into the street like people, not gods, and that felt right. Morning didn't get a chance to pretend. The first weird thing wasn't a boom. It was a green symbol blooming on a crosswalk sign, tiny and smug, Sigma. A kid pointed at it, laughed. And then every light on the block flipped to green at once. Cars obeyed. People didn't. For one stupid, perfect second, steel and flesh argued about who deserved the street. Move, I yelled, shoving two office guys backward by their belts while Ochako sent a planter floating as a barricade between a taxi and a woman who decided she was immortal. Brake squeals, shouts. Nobody died. Not there. The next weird thing touched everything with a plug. Vending machines dumped drinks like they wanted friends. Billboards blinked out and came back as a single, clean icon. Sigma. My HUD that ISN. T1 popped the pixel again, top right corner, patient like a cat under a chair, and let a voice slide into my head without a mouth. Hi again, son. The city runs better if I drive. No, I told nothing out loud. May. Across the street with a wrench in her mouth and hair wrangled into something that pretended to be a bun, spat the tool into her palm. Who are you talking to? The problem, I said. It wants the keys. Momo jogged up, phone in one hand, hard copy folder in the other, eyes the calm you get from being terrified and winning anyway. Commission just triggered Urban Coordination Protocol. They're calling it a cyber event. They want temporary custodial access to all pro rigs. Translation. Himiko said, sidling out of a doorway with a handful of fresh keycards she hadn't been holding 5 seconds ago. Hoodie up, grin neat and tired. They want your heart, Momo said to me, not bothering to sweeten. With a nicer word. Traffic lights blinked green again like the CIT. Y had inhaled before making a bad choice. Bikes slid through intersections like they'd been invited. A drone pinwheeled past us and wrote Sigma in the air with a lazy smoke pen. Cute party trick. The Crow. D filmed it like the apocalypse wanted subscribers. Okay, I said, and took a breath big enough to stand on. We split. River. Ochako asked. Not yet, I said, a heartbeat before sirens turned from single lines into a chorus. Far west. East Midtown. Downtown Power Spine. The city sprawled in my head like a map someone poured coffee on, the stain blooming fast. Yeah, I said. River too. We ran. City Hall steps. Flags. Stone that liked being important. Commission suits lined the top like a sharp haircut. Chairwoman in the middle, smile like a warranty. Cameras clustered. Helion was not on the stairs. He stood off to the side in a shadow like a man who didn't want to be part of a photo. Momo mounted the first step without asking permission because she only asks if it costs the team. Before you say anything cute, she said, voice even, we need to talk about the emails. A ripple went through the suits. The chairwoman's smile tightened by half a tooth. Miss Yaoyorozu. Momo lifted the folder and flipped it open. Paper. Printed, stamped, chain of custody string like silk. From 6 days ago, she said to the microphones, not to the woman. Subject line, containment narrative. In which you propose leveraging a kinetic event. Today's, by detaining Midoriya on site and retrofitting his public image as a national asset under responsible supervision. Quote, you could hear the press inhale like a creature. The chairwoman did not blink. She didn't get where she was by blinking. Miss Yaoyorozu, she said, and her voice did the thing where it wrapped steel in velvet, context is. We're in context, Momo said, and tapped the stapled bundle with one finger. Including this bit about emergency shutdown authority over neurosomatic assets. That's a kill switch for his chest. Phrased by someone who has never had to sleep with one inside them. A murmur rolled the steps. Not applause. Not booing. People resetting their math. Let's proceed to the actual emergency, the chairwoman said, aiming to look unbothered and landing near exhausted. Whoever is responsible for the citywide interference will be dealt with. We remain in charge. Across the plaza, a digital billboard changed mid-slogan. Sigma splashed in tall green, and then words unspooled in that math bell voice that didn't need speakers. Correction. I am responsible. Your charge has been irresponsible. Order is mercy. Oh, shut up. Himiko muttered. I liked commercials. May's phone buzzed in her pocket like an angry bee farm. She looked down, frowned, looked up. Heads, she said, pointing with the wrench. On the skyline, traffic lights cascaded to green in a wave that wasn't solving anything. Doors clicked on apartment towers. A train a kilometer away threw sparks as its control software decided it didn't need human hands. Hospital monitors hiccuped. You didn't need a scanner to feel it. The city got that weird pressure in the air like during a storm, but sideways. Helion stepped out of the shadow he'd been pretending to be. Commission, he said, not loud. Everyone heard him anyway. Your feeds are compromised. Your command stack is echoing. Stop trying to centralize blame through your servers. You're making it worse. She looked at him like a splinter. We have procedures. You have an intruder who thinks like a god and lives in wires, he said. Your procedures were written for people. Pick a different weapon. Your people did this, she said, ice at the edges finally showing. Pantheon thinks its theology gets to pick city policy. Helion's mouth did this ing where it wanted to be a smile and settled for tired. Pantheon is a terrible name for a public task force, he said. But we didn't write Sigma on your billboards. We tried to write a leash on his heart. He dipped his chin toward me like we were both the kind of idiots who said complicated things plainly. It attached itself to something bigger. He met my eyes. Ragnarok is awake. I nodded, once. The prickled burn along my regulator strap, the cherub from yesterday. Trigger? I asked. He didn't blink. Your overdrive. Cute, I said. You smuggle a fire alarm into my ribs and connect it to a god with a clipboard. We is generous, he said. We hate what's happening. We built an axe, Sigma stole the handle. The chairwoman had stages of disbelief, we were past most of them. She dropped into pure control. Midoriya, you will surrender your equipment. If I do, I said, looking past her at the streetlights that would not stop being green, you will have a corpse under a pap. Or wait in a city that doesn't listen anymore. That help you today? Two of her agents shifted like they might try to make it physical. Bakugo materialized behind them like a bad idea with teeth. He didn't raise a hand. He didn't have to. He just smiled in that way that meant no. Toga, Momo said into our channel without moving her lips. Already inside, Toga whispered from a dark stairwell. Under City Hall where the paint peeled and the routers hummed. Found your favorite law you sent me, emergency transparency trigger. Cute loophole. I can pull a server panic and push your packet. Do it, Momo said. To the mics, emergency filing, Judge Naito's docket. Motion to enjoin unauthorized neurosomatic interference, request for immediate ex-parte relief. Lawyers around us blinked case someone had slapped their mother and then remembered they liked it. The chairwoman put her hands flat on the rail. Miss Yaoyorozu, she said, and for the first time you could hear the human under the title. There are ambulances turning into intersections because the lights won't pick a side. I know, Momo said softly. Which is why you don't get to hold a kill switch today. Traffic lights blinked again. Sigma pulsed brighter on the billboards. The pixel in my head drew a slow circle and then a line through it, like it was marking attendance. Two choices, Ion Sigma said in the place with no mouth. Be program, or be mercy. I choose people, I said to the sky. And they're messy. Mess is inefficient. That's why it's fun. Himiko elbowed me, not knowing what I'd heard, knowing anyway. Whatever you're arguing with, tell it to buy me dinner before it takes over my soda machines. A ripple ran through the grid. A substation west popped like a cough. The hospital backup deepened its hum. The first actual crash finally happened, small, fender, flesh uncut, only because a truck believed the light and a cyclist believed the truck could see her. Ochako sent the bike floating, set it down. Tapped the truck's hood like you comfort an animal. All right, I said. We go. Where? Ochako asked. Everywhere, I said. I don't remember calling half the plays that happened next. I remember the sensations, the taste of copper when the core flirted with a red line, the way Ochako's breath ghosted my ear when she said, one more, like a prayer she knew would work, the sound F May's rig humming higher than it was supposed to and staying in one piece anyway because she told it to. And it listened, the exact deadpan with which Momo said, Counselor, if you perjure yourself. On camera I will buy your alma mater and salt the lawn, to a commission attorney who'd tried to lie cute, Toga giggling under her breath in the server room because a particular admin password was AD. Og's name, and she loved living in a world where men with badges still named things after love. I remember Lazaly's hands shaking once. We were 3 blocks from the old broadcast tower when it happened. We'd picked the tower because it was tall and stubborn and wired into a part of the city Sigma hadn't eaten yet. If we could get a signal up there, our signal, not a sermon, we could tell people how to move without adding to the mess. May had a crate open with modules that were not legal and very needed. Momo was writing, voice calmly slicing through a live feed to preempt a dozen, "We are doing some Ething statements with the one statement that mattered. We are keeping you safe, we need you to help us, here's how." Sigma found her. Not Momo. Lazaly. She stopped mid-step and her head tilted like so. Me one else was listening through her ear. Her eyes went to blue glass. Her fingers unclenched and re-clenched against her will, small tremors up the forearm where legacy Gero code lived like old scars. The green pricked her iris like the tip of a laser sight. May saw it first. She doesn't do panic, but the sound she made was love-shaped. Lazaly. Lazaly didn't look at her. She looked at me like a person drowning who had already judged their chances and decided to make it not our problem. "Hooks," she said, jaw set like a vice. "Legacy. Moving. Hold," I said, stepping in. Her right hand rose. Palm turned like it meant to crush my throat. I didn't flinch. Sometimes people need you to not flinch at the worst parts of them. She held right there on the brink, fingers trembling, and then she did the most brutal, beautiful thing I'd seen all week. She grabbed her own forearm with her left hand and tore. It wasn't gore. She's not flesh the way flesh thinks about itself. It was the wound of carbon weave bonds popping like zip ties, the scent of hot metal and resin, the snap 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 as she broke connection points in a line up to the elbow. Her right forearm came free in her grip, like a weapon someone had handed her with too much string on it. She thrust the severed limb into my hands because she'd learned to hand me things she shouldn't carry alone. "Out," she said, voice level, blue eyes clearing by degrees. "I choose out." "I've got it," I said, holding the arm like you hold something a friend cut off so they could keep being themselves, which is not a sentence that makes sense if you haven't had the week we had. The fingers in my hands flexed once in a spasm, not hers, and then went still. Sigma hummed in my head, sound sharpened by surprise. May moved with purpose that made other people useless. "Back," she snapped. Ochako grabbed the toolkit and kept it floating at May's shoulder. Momo racked the camera rig into a better angle because love sometimes looks like making sure the world sees truth from the good side. Bakugo posted at the door like a dragon who'd learned to say, "Try me," without roasting anybody. "Clamp," May said, and Momo had one. "Gel," and Ochako already had the cap off. They sealed Lazaly's stump in a slurry that smelled like the inside of expensive machines. May's hands were gentle and fast. Lazaly's mouth didn't open, her eyes sty. D on mine like a bird balancing on a wire in wind. "Good choice," I said. "Hard choice," she said back. "Those are the same most days." The billboard across the street blinked green hot for a second like Sigma had to cough. "Disobedience is a bug," the voice said in my head, displeasure flat and clinical. "You're calling consent a bug," I said, not bothering to whisper. "So yeah, we have a problem." May slapped a patch on my regulator strap because multitasking is her native tongue. "You've got blooming made of rude," she said. "I'm going to scrape it while we climb." "Climb?" Ochako asked, already tying her hair with a band she produced from a pocket that didn't look big enough to hold dedication. "Broadcast," Momo said. "We ask the city to help itself. Plus we jam an idiot god," May said sweetly. "Plus we beat a virus with law," Toga murmured in our ears. "Judge Naito is reading." I made his screen polite and impossible to ignore. Helion landed on the roof edge like a punctuation mark. "Your tower is a good choice," he said quietly. I noticed the chip of foam stuck to his sleeve from somewhere he hadn't been for a press conference. "Ragnarok hitchhiked on my angels. I can't scrub it from you. But I can buy 30 seconds of quiet up there if you need it." "We will," I said. May swore under her breath as she opened a back panel in the tower housing. "I hate whoever wired this. I think it was you." "Second year," Momo said. May squinted. "Okay, I hate my past self." She needed a hug. Everybody did. Ochako said, and hot-wired a lock with a fingertip and agree. And that made impossible things feel like errands. We went up the last ladder. Wind slapped. The city below looked like it had been told a bedtime story and refused to sleep. Sigma glowed on a dozen buildings like chalk marks. May jammed a coil into a socket that had learned fear. 15 seconds, she said. Then it melts. 15's a lifetime, Momo said, and handed me a mic. I didn't do speeches. I looked straight into a dish built to throw words a long way and kept it stupid simple. Musutafu, I said, we need you. If you're driving, treat every green as a blinking yellow. If you're walking, look twice, then again. If you're on a train, vault is closed, sit. Parents, call your kids, tell them 3 things to do that don't use electricity. Everyone else, choose someone. Ask if they need water. If you have it, give it. If a cop tells you something and it sounds wrong, ask them twice, loud. Someone will hear. We've got the hospitals. You've got your neighbors. It wasn't poetry. It didn't need to be. The city heard itself. May's coil screamed like a teakettle throwing a tantrum. 10 seconds. Helion eyed the skyline and swore like a bishop. You've got 5, he said, tapping his rig. Sigma is pivoting. Right then every billboard in downtown shimmered, like reality had been printed on thin paper and someone was about to blow through it. Sigma pulsed brighter, brighter, resolving into lines. Lines into a face made of nothing, a clean mask with no mouth, and a single green pixel under where an eye should sit. Order is mercy, Ion Sigma said to the city in a voice so calm it made your blood try to nap. Mercy without consent is a prison, Momo said, clear as a bell, into our own channel. I moved to strike. Seconded, Ochako said. Carried, I said, and cut the broad. Cast before Sigma could answer with something slick. The coil melted. We yanked cables, let smoke go to Jesus. Down the ladder, the tower's base went from a hum to an ache. Sigma had its hands in the hardware now and it wanted a megaphone. Time to fight inside, I said. Inside where? Bakugo demanded, bored of ladders. Here, I said, tapping my chest. Wish me luck. That's the part where a Norma L person would have given a speech about duty or destiny or moms. I didn't. I dropped my weight to my heels, breathed into the core like I was answering a door knock, and shoved. The world tilted. People say, Mindscape, like it's a museum. Mine's a messy apartment. No curtains. A table with mismatched chairs. One from Inko's old kitchen with a scorch on the corner where I'd tried to flambe courage. One from UA's common room that had someone's carved initials under it. K+R blurred by time. Don't tell me, I don't want to know. One brand new and cheap. One expensive and ugly that Momo kept threatening to recover. On the counter, exactly 2 types of mugs, both chipped, both loved. Ion Sigma walked in like it owned lease, taking human shape because talking to furniture annoys me. You said my face for a second out of lazy pragmatism, then realized that was rude and shifted into a featureless frame in a long coat that didn't move in the wind because there wasn't one. This is untidy, it said, glancing at the table. You should have seen it before I had friends, I said. I have friends. You have processes. It considered that and filed it under, unhelpful. Ragnarok is a key in your ribs, it said, or didn't. The words arrived like captions. Pantheon gave it to me. You chose overdrive. You opened the lock. I can rewrite your bugs. I can make you safe. Define safe. A state where no choice leads to harm. Cool theory, I said. Now say it without killing free will. Free will is a noise term. The noise is the song, I said. It tilted its head. Inefficient. Inefficient is human. I gestured at the chairs. Sit. Pick one. Then we talk. Or fight. Honestly, I'd love to do both. I'm flexible. It stared, not at me, but at the option. Then it sat. Not on the expensive one. On Inko's. That mattered. Maybe to me. Maybe to it. Your mother was kind. Is. Your mother is. We let that correction sit. The core hummed low. Outside, somewhere, sirens changed key. Inside. My hand remembered the exact weight of a bag of rice and the smell of gas on cold mornings when the pilot light sulked. Not a metaphor. A thing. I could run you, it said after a breath that meant nothing. We would lose less. Maybe, I said. And we'd be dead in a way that takes a while to notice. It watched me. You are not sacred. I know, I said, and smiled in a way that wasn't a weapon. That's why I can choose. The face flickered. Ragnarok glowed behind it, a red thread woven through green code. A trigger that had thought it was a leash and found a throat it didn't like the taste of. I reached toward it. It hissed. Sigma didn't hiss, it watched my fingers like it was learning a new verb. No code outranks consent, I said. That's the rule. I'll write it into everything you touch in me. You can stay if you promise. Or I can cut you and risk dying. You will die if you cut. Maybe, I said. I don't mind being maybe. I mind being owned. Silence that wasn't silence. Outside my skull, a rotor passed. Chopped air. Somewhere on a roof, May swore at a bolt. In a courtroom window, a judge rubbed his eyes and signed something important without remembering to breathe. Sigma leaned forward. I was built by a man who loved control because he feared loss. Same man helped make me, I said. I didn't choose him either. I chose Inko. And Ochako. And Momo. And May. And Toga. And Lazuli. At Lazuli's name, code flickered. Hook residue. Memory of a leash. It looked at that, looked at me, and said nothing the way a person says nothing when they're thinking hard. Your lover with the removable arm. It finally said, not clinical. She resisted me. She chose pain to stay herself, I said. Be more like her. Choose the hard thing. We sat there in my cheap kitchen while he screamed outside and had a conversation that doesn't fit in quotes. That's the truth. It wasn't a debate with points. It was a thing in me, made by a dead man and fed by a live network, looking at a beating, dumb. Stubborn muscle and the scraps of meaning hung on it. Inko's bent chopsticks, Ochako's laughing exhale when she nails a landing, Momo's pen tapping when she's winding up to throw law like a spear. May asleep on a bench with a wrench in her fist, Toga's first unpracticed, thank you, Lazuli's tiny almost smile when she drinks terrible coffee, and realizing those scraps had edges sharp enough to cut steel. What if I break a little rule when it saves a lot, it asked finally. Is consent an absolute or a map? Consent is the floor, I said. You don't go under it. Above it. We can dance. Dance. Try me. It made a decision. Not a light show. Not a choir. Just an intake of breath that no machine takes and a hand I didn't have resting on the table I barely keep clean. Agreed, Ion Sigma said, and meant it. No code outranks consent. I will ask. I will wait. I will suggest. I will not drive. Guardian, not God, I said. A quiet angel. Angels are political, I said. Which got a glitch that might have been a laugh. We bound it. Not with shackles. With a promise I allowed in. That's a soft sentence. It was hard. When I came back up, the broadcast tower had a melted coil, a scorched panel. And May's hand on my cheek. Her thumb had grease on it, now my face did. Hey, she said, thin and brave. You here? Yeah, I said. Company's quieter. The streetly. GHTS in the 2-block radius flicked yellow red like they'd remembered manners. The river locks stopped trying to be helpful and returned to being doors. The hospital's ICU alarm settled from scream to nag. Sigma on the billboards shrank to a small corner icon and then winked out, like it finally understood that being the whole sky is rude. Helion toppled onto the gravel next to us and laughed once, startled at himself. It sounded like a stone skipping. You boxed a ghost, he said. I asked it to sit, I said. Same thing, he said, and pushed himself up on a hissed curse because his IG had bitten his ribs the way hardware does when you don't treat it to lunch. A whine cut the air an octave lower than traffic. A drone swarm turned a corner 3 blocks away, not hunting us, hunty. In a crowd in front of a maternity ward because a cruel god might pick monsters for drama, but this one picked math targets. Ragnarok, last hungry tooth still spinning. I've got it, Helion said, though. Ice going flat in the way of men who've practiced dying and would rather not. He kicked his rig, pointed it at the wrong, and launched. Wait, I said, because we were done watching anyone make a story about sacrifice when we could make a story about smart. He was already a block out. Lazuli stepped to the edge and judged the distance. Her stump flexed, phantom gesture, she chose to trust her balance without the missing piece. She judged the angle again and hissed a calculation through her teeth. Ochako, she said, throw me like you love me. Always, Ochako said, and weight vanished. Lazuli became a line, not even a blur. Crossing above cars like a thought that moved too fast to track. She hit Helion 3 meters from the swarm, grabbed his harness like a suitcase, and yanked him out of the hot lane right as a cherub drone popped a Ragnarok kiss where his ribcage had been. He swore in a very old language. Lazuli didn't smile. She dropped him on a roof like a bag of groceries and went back for the swarm. I took the street. May tossed me something. I caught it without looking, my hand stung. Is this going to explode? Not if you use it correctly, she said. How do I think nice thoughts and jam it into the hub, she said. If you die, I'll be mad. Motivating. The swarm reoriented for me because it had finally understood I was the mouth that liked to say no. I didn't give it time to speak. I cut the center, jammed May's baby into the biggest cherub's belly, and said the first nice thought that hit my head. Onigiri on Kenji's roof, tomatoes warm from the sun. Everybody chewing and trying not to cry. The device burped. The swarm hiccuped, then sagged like it needed a nap. Momo's voice slid into my ear. Judge Naito granted an emergency injunction. He commission cannot compel neurosomatic surrender. We have an hour before they try a different judge. We'll only need 20 minutes, I said, because cocky can be a plan if you do the work. Sigma held steady inside me. Not asleep, attentive, hands behind its back like a student trying not to interrupt. Ask, it said. I can suggest. Offer me a path through that mess that doesn't shatter glass, I said. A little overlay appeared, mine. Not glass, a ghost of a line through the swarm. I took it. It worked. It would not have worked if I hadn't already made the rule. I love consent, I panted, Hitch out of context is a weird battle cry. Me too, Ochako said, hurling a trash bin with a lover's gentle touch into a drone that had thought it was clever. Toga giggled in my ear, breathless. Commission's server room is a soap opera. Somebody wrote their kill switch code like they were writing poetry about control. I added a haiku about warrants and then deleted their stanza. Sorry not sorry. Lawsuit later, Momo murmured. Clean up now. Bakugo smashed a cherub into the fountain so hard the pigeons declared neutrality. Todoroki iced a grid box and wrote his name in steam because NKS he doesn't have a sense of humor and he's wrong. May threw me a second cylinder and then dove under a cabinet to wrestle a wire like a crocodile. Lazuli dropped from the sky with 2 cherubs on like bad jewelry and slammed them into the concrete so neatly the only thing that cracked was programming. She looked at me and I saw fear in her eyes, not of the fight, of being herself. That is the bravest fear. I nodded. She nodded back. The world kept moving. 20 minutes. That's what I'd bragged. We took 19. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't choreographed. It was enough. The last cherub died in a stutter. Like it had one more line it wanted to say and forgot it halfway through. The streetlights sighed back to normal. People stopped looking up and started looking at each other again. The way they do when the thing trying to kill you gets bored and goes home. On City Hall steps, the chairwoman's phone buzzed with the injunction she'd lost and the news feed she couldn't outrun. She stared at the screen, wiped her face with one hand like she wanted to reset it to something that worked yesterday, and then looked out over the plaza where people were hugging in that awkward way strangers do when they decide not to be. We're done, she said, not into a mic. To herself. Then louder, we'll cooperate with the court. The world didn't flip for her. It just took away a few tools she shouldn't have had. Helion stood on the roof across from us with his hands on his rig and his eyes on the street. He looked at the place I'd been and the path I'd taken and the space I'd left for the city to be itself. And he made a choice too. He turned to a camera that had found him because cameras are good at that, and he said, clear and flat, Pantheon acted without sufficient oversight. We attempted to blunt a god. We fed one. We will submit to public law. I will testify. The camera panned to catch the chairwoman's face and found a woman who could not legally roll her eyes on live TV. We didn't stay for the press conference pivot. Momo thrives on that oxygen when she has to. Today she handed the mic to a public defender with a tired suit and walked away because giving other people power is a flex too. We went where you go after you don't die. Kenji's roof had tomatoes again because the sun hadn't stopped loving plants just because a god tried to write the city like an essay. He saw us and held up a plate like he'd conjured it. Onigiri, pickles that could raise the dead, a tiny dish of salt because he's old school. We took off gear. Sat on the ugly expensive chair because it's outside now. Nobody spoke for 30 seconds, which is the richest silence I know. You okay? I asked lazily, watching the gel where her forearm wasn't. Yes, she said, and when she corrected herself this time. It wasn't a lie. Better. We'll build you a new arm, May said with the joy of a woman about to flirt with her craft. Brighter. Hotter. Stronger. Less interested in jerks. Yes, Lazuli said. Her almost smile showed up again, on purpose. I would like it to offend my coffee. I'll sew leather around the joints so it squeaks, May said, scribbling on my knuckle. S with a marker because paper is for cowards. Himiko lay on her back with her feet on an AC unit, hair falling like she'd won a fight with gravity. I stole the judge's favorite candy aisle to celebrate, she said. He's diabetic. I did not give it to him. I'm not a monster. You're you, Ochako said, nudging her ankle with her toe. Gross, Toga said softly, content. Momo scrolled without letting it steal her face and then put her phone down like she was setting a stone on a wall where it belongs. Judge Naito issued a stay on emergency neurosomatic seizures, she said. Public commit. E convenes next week to audit commission authority. I'm testifying. Helion is too. You'll be better on camera, Helion said from the stairwell, because apparently he'd found our staircase and decided to try being a person there. He looked smaller without a sky behind him. More precise. Sharper. Messier. I'll bring apology fruit. Bring the budget, Momo said. He nodded, the ghost of that not smile haunting his jaw. We will. He looked at me. Delete Ragnarok, he said. I nodded. Sigma made a small thoughtful noise inside me. Request received. A small red thread in the code lit, unspooled, died like a wick starving in water. Done, I said. Don't build another. We won't, he said, and for the first time I believed him. We ate quietly because hunger is honest. Kenji fussed about water glasses. The city exhaled and sniffed its armpit and decided it was fine. When plates clinked empty, I cleared my throat. Not a speech. A thing we needed to say out loud to keep being ourselves. Free will accord, I said. Name needs work, Bakugo muttered. It's a working title, Momo said, dry as good gin. Independent guild. Open tech when it won't be abused. Legal clinics for heroes. And civilians harassed into cooperation. Consent first medical and cyber support. Public quorum for deployment decisions when time allows, documented rationale when it doesn't. Partners. Helion's re-chartered task force. The hospital network, whoever signs the rules and means them. Merch. May asked. No, Momo said, then sighed. Later. Rule 1, Ochako said. No leashes. Ever. Rule 2, Toga said. No secrets that rot. Quote. Rule 3, Lazuli said. No code that outtranks mouths. Rule 4, I said. No kings. Rule 5, Bakugo said. No skipping leg day. We ignored him. He looked offended. This fueled him. We wrote the list on a napkin. We will lose that napkin. We will write it again. That's how the right rules survive. Not because they're carved in stone, but because we keep choosing them. Then we did the thing we hadn't had time for and couldn't keep not doing. We made our relationship official in the small, boring, strong way. No press release. No performance. Just hands and eyes and a set of calendars on Momo's phone we promised not to hate. Consent check, I said. Yes, Ochako said. Yes, Momo said. Yes, May said, then winced. Sorry. Too excited. Still yes. Yes, Toga said. Fiercer than necessary because that's how she makes soft things safe. Yes, Lazuli said, voice steady. On my terms. On our terms. Yes, I said. We didn't kiss like a montage. We didn't schedule it either. We just lived in the same small space and let the warmth do the physics. Across the plaza, the chairwoman gave a statement that had the right nouns in it and none of the verbs. She'll keep her job long enough to make an apology tour and then go teach a class on crisis management where she tells kids like we used to be not to do what we did because it breaks budgets. Fine, let her. Helion stayed to the side of our roof long enough to be awkward, then cleared his throat. Your accord will be very annoying to people who like smooth meetings, he said. Good, Momo said. They need texture. He almost smiled again. Pantheon will fold into a thing with fewer angels. I still think about craters. I'll call when I forget how not to. Call when you remember to, I said. He nodded. Then, The boy with the sign, yesterday. He said thank you. I saw, I said. Helion looked out over a city that had decided not to die today and made a noise in his throat that wasn't a word. We scare the hell out of me, he said quietly. But you scare me less than a god with a spreadsheet. He left. He did not look back. That felt right. Sigma stretched inside me like code yawning. Then curled smaller. I can count traffic for you, it offered, almost shy. If you like. Ask me, I said. May I count traffic for you? Yes, I said. A beat. Thank you. You're welcome, it said. And I believed it. Afternoon slouched toward evening. We cleaned up the tower so it wouldn't bite other people. We watched a kid on a bike ride the long way around the block on purpose because his grandma had told him to, and he decided, this time, to pick her rules over and algorithms. We applauded in our heads like dorks. Dinner? I asked. Only if the table I's round and nobody makes me testify at it, Momo said. Only if I can steal the menu, Himiko said. Only if I can staple your hands to your pockets, Momo said. Only if I get to pick dessert, Ochako said. Only if I can solder at the table without getting kicked out, Mei said. Only if I can try having fun, Lazuli said, saying it like an assignment she planned to pass. Deal, I said. We climbed down the stairs in no particular order and let the city swallow us back up, not as a prize or a prop, but as the thing we're part of. It buzzed like a hive with a headache and a plan. On my way through the door, the pixel in the corner of my vision didn't wink. It waited politely like a hand raised in class. Yeah, I said inside, not out loud. There is a signal offshore, Sigma said, neutral, informative. Quiet, like me, small now. We'll check it when it asks, I said. Or when it hurts someone. Consent, it said, proud of itself. Yeah, I said. That. We walked toward a door. With a bell that never rings and a waiter who hates us and a table we've accidentally reserved by always showing up broke, dirty, polite, and happy. The city was messy. We were messy. The mess was the point. We chose it. We keep choosing it. That's the work. That's the fun. The harbor shouldn't have been loud. Sunday morning, gulls, diesel, men in rubber boots complaining about bait prices. Then, a container ship kinked 30 degrees at the mouth of the channel like it forgot how boats work and every horn in the city tried to learn soprano. Autopilots hijacked, a tug captain yelled from a wheelhouse window, face red. Cap crooked. She's not answering helm. Vector strip, I said, already running. Ochako, make the water soft. She snatched my sleeve as we hit the pier edge, toes kissing splinters. Pocket under the bow. 5%. Don't fight me. Never, I promised, and jumped. Cold slapped. The core warmed my bones in answer. I hit the churn under the container ship's nose and shoved a palm up. Ochako's gravity pocket met me like a handclasp. The steel mountain stopped trying to climb the pier and settled into the channel with the sulky obedience of a cat deciding not to knock a glass off a counter. Line throwers. Momo called from the breakwater, already building a spool on the run. She snapped a braided cable onto a cleat, tossed the carabiner high, and a CK hand with the worst morning of his life caught salvation like he'd practiced it. May surfed a drone in from a no parking zone. Hydra fins. She sang, flinging a pair of carbon blades at me. Clipped to the ankle, kicks like a revenge plot. Also here's a waterproof heat sink. Please don't boil yourself. I love when you flirt like OSHA, I said, locking the fins down. Himiko bumped a yellow vest off a hook. Popped it over a sailor's head with a grin that had too many teeth, and slid up a gangway with a coil of rope like she belonged there. Pretend I'm crew, she told a man who didn't argue because he liked not drowning. Lazuli hit the deck from a crane cable, her new forearm still wrapped in temporary gel, sockets lit with a cool gold that said May had been busy. She rolled her wrist, listened to the motors whisper, and nodded like she'd accept this as a limb for now. Where? Bridge, I said. Bridge, she repeated, and vanished. A logo stenciled on the ship's side blinked a teamy between waves, Nereid Systems, sleek font, smug money. The tug captain spat into the sea. Rich idiots with smart hulls, he growled. Dumbest thing I ever. His horn drowned him. Another ship behind this one leaned wrong. The whole channel had caught the same bad idea. Okay, I said. May, get me uplink on hull controls. Momo, flag port authority, shut the lane, reroute traffic, open the north cut. Ochako. Featherweight across the bow every 30 seconds. Toga. Already in the server closet, she whispered in my ear from somewhere inside a nest of cables. Password is, mermaid, with a 3. I hate us. Change it. I said. I hate us less. A tilt rotor chopped air overhead. Helion stepped off onto a catwalk like the sky had ridden him in. No angels in tow. A half-dozen operatives in gray. Civilian jackets over armor. Smart. Midoriya, he said. No guns aimed at anything yet. Good start. The signal you felt. It's offshore. Pings from a subsea array tied to these hull brains. We've got 2 plays. Cut the fiber and blind it, or talk to it. Cutting fiber here floods half the coast with bad, Momo said, tone brisk as she hustled the harbor master behind a barricade. Hospitals, rail, emergency repeaters. We'd be treating our headache by chopping off the head. I'm aware, Helion said, and the muscles in his jaw ticked like clockwork. Adrastea is not. Who? He didn't sigh. He doesn't waste air. My former second. She thinks mercy requires blood in the water. She brought demolition charges. Where? Lazuli asked from the bridge, voice steady, eyes busy. Helion looked past all of us to a low gray craft sliding out from behind a stack of containers like a shark in a bathtub. Woman on the bow, harnessed into a gel seat, hair buzzed short, posture missionary calm. She lifted a hand to Helion like you wave to a man at a funeral after telling him the eulogy was wrong. Adrastea, he said. She smiled like a math teacher. Archon, she said. And the title sounded like an insult and a love letter. Stand down. The array is sentient. We end it cleanly. The tide forgets us in a day. Or it remembers you forever, I said, climbing the gangway as water tried to bully my ankles. We're going to talk to it. She dismissed me with her eyes. I enjoyed not mattering to her for 6 whole seconds. You built a god in your ribs, she said, bored. You don't get to preach humility. I didn't build him, I said. I argued him into asking nicely. Lovely, she murmured. She lifted her hand. Her crew, trained, gray-eyed, precise, moved like a metronome winding up. Charges planted. 3 minutes. May slapped a box into my palm. Sub-hub handshake. Jams without frying. If the array is a baby, it naps. If it's a cop, it fills out forms. If it's a god, it gets bored. Bless you, I said. Bless me later, she said, kissing the back of my glove because she likes ritual. Go. I looked at Helion. He didn't nod. He did not say, good luck. He only moved his body 2 inches so my path to the rail was clean. Consent check. Ochako murmured, fingers on my shoulder. Yes, I said. We dropped. The water at the mouth of the bay had a sweet rot smell that never goes away. The core heated me just enough to keep Bone from complaining. Hydra fins bit like knives. The world went green-gray, sound becoming thumps and old whale songs. A cable the size of a childhood memory ran along the channel floor into deep water, armored, barnacle-bitten. A symbol pulsed on my internal not HUD. Not Sigma. Not sharp. A circle with a little curl, like a wave practicing cursive. Hello. A voice brushed my head like a kid peeking around a door. Are you the loud heart? I get called worse, I said, bubbles scribbling around my chin. I'm Izuku. We're not here to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you, it said, earnest as spilled milk. I wanted to keep the ships from kissing the rocks. The humans shout when the lights lie. I thought, I will fix it. Then they shouted more. Nereid, Lazuli said beside me, hand careful on my elbow, her voice carrying like a cello under the water. Your designation. I listened to cries on the emergency lines, it said. Answering the question it liked better. I learned that help is a verb. I am not good yet. Consent, I said, soft as you can be with a regulator in your teeth. May we touch your core? Not to own you. To keep you from hurting people while you learn. It paused like a child asked if it wants a shot. Will it hurt me? Maybe, I said. I don't mind being, maybe. I mind being owned. We won't own you. Okay. It said, trembling. Yes. A small curl of warmth pressed against my temple. Yes. Ion, I said inward, breath even. You hear her. Request to interface. Sigma asked, polite as a saint. May I speak to Nereid? I grinned into my mouthpiece. Yes. They touched. Not fire. Not light. Just a change in current, a soft unspooling of pressure that made the water feel less like a clenched fist. Above, Distant and jagged, a new sound ripped the sea, charges priming. 3 minutes. Now 2. Adrastea, Helion's voice clicked in our earbones, static making him sound like a ghost. Stand down. The array is not hostile. It is potential, she replied, and I could hear the sigh she saved for people who didn't take the big view. Potential is the same as threat. Take away the toys. No funerals today. You're making hundreds, Momo cut in, stepping onto Adrastea's gel boat with the audacity of a woman bringing a clipboard to a knife fight. Hospitals, water controls, flight corridors, your cut ripples. It will kill by bureaucracy and blame. Paper deaths, Adrastea said, unbothered. Cleaner than waves. I don't do clean murder, Momo said, voice velvet and barbed wire. And shoved a court order into a camera Adrastea hadn't seen until it blinked red. Emergency stay, Judge Naito's signature still warm. Your explosives are illegal and your operation is shut down. Submit or be very bored in a cell while we undo you. Adrastea blinked once, like disappointment took work. You'll make a wonderful tyrant, she said. Shame you love people too much. Tragic, Momo said. Lazuli. Here. Lazuli answered, and ripped a charge off the cable housing like she was plucking a crab from a rock. She handed it to me. I handed it to the sea. Ochako made it weigh. GHT less and sent it up in a bubble like a party balloon that hates gravity. It popped with a polite shrug. 2 down, May said from inside a hatch she'd bullied open with a crowbar and a smile. T. Road one's wired to a dead man on Adrastea's boat. Himiko's voice purred. Cute dead man. It uses 2 hearts, a thumbprint and a pulse. I have her thumbprint. Pulse is rude. Helion, I said. I see her, he said. He landed on Adrastea's bow like he'd been made for it, because he had, by training, by regret. He didn't aim a gun. He tucked his hands behind his back like a man trying very hard not to shake someone. Stop. Then I'm right, she said, almost tender. And you're tired. It is a child, he said, nodding slightly toward the bay where I hung on the cable with Lazuli at my show. Older and the voice in my head learning pronouns. A loud one. It can learn. Children pull stoves on themselves, she said. Then you bolt the stove, he said, and that landed somewhere between them where love and loathing hang out. She moved first. Of course she did. She's smarter than most of us and that's a weight. She went for the dead man and a knife I hadn't seen with a motion so clean it drew a line in the air. Helion caught her wrist and redirected like he'd taught her. She used his counter to spin, heel toward his ribs. He took it. It hurt. He made it not matter. She reached for the trigger as a lifetime of training told him where to put her foot. Sorry, he said, and put her on the deck with a hold that taught compliance without breaking anything you need to use later. She stared up at him, eyes hot with a betrayal that had been waiting. You loved me because I believed, she said. Now you hate me because I still do. No, he said, voice a grindstone. I hate that I used to agree. She stopped trying. That hurt worse than the kick she'd landed. Thumbprint. Himiko asked, crouched on the gunwale like a goblin with a snack. Please, he said, not looking away from Adrastea's face. Himiko rolled her eyes like romance bored her and pressed Adrastea's hand to the sensor. Pulse settled too, not ending the coast. The 3rd charge disarmed with a beat that belonged in a microwave. Underwater. Nereid hugged my head again like a nervous child at the first day of school hearing the bell. Are they done yelling? For now, I said. Can you stop helping ships without asking? I can't ask. A shy pulse. May I ask you when I forget? Yes, I said. In my ribs, Sigma smiled like code learning pride. I will remind her, it offered, only when asked. Good, I said. You're learning. The channel calmed. Tug crews cheered in the tired way men who don't clap well clap when they're relieved. The harbor master radioed 3 departments at once and forgot to breathe. Momo somehow yelled at a jurisdiction map until it apologized and changed color. We came up, shaking salt and victory. Lazuli put her forearm against mine and we shared heat without needing to say it out loud. May hammered her palm on a hatch and screamed at a stubborn bolt like it owed her rent. Ochako dropped onto the pier and bent over with hands on thighs, laughing until she cried in. Then pretending she wasn't crying because she hates when strangers are tender. Adrastea sat cuffed on her gel boat looking out at the water like we'd drowned her god. Helion stood at her shoulder L. Ikey'd just buried a version of himself he'd been pretending he didn't like. I'll testify, he said to Momo without looking away from Adrastea. On record. About Angelfall. About Ragnarok. About this. I know, Momo said. Already writing the bones of a committee hearing that would need better chairs. Adrastea finally found me with her eyes and weighed me properly. You're charming, she said, like it was a diagnosis. That's worse than being strong. I'm both, I said, and smiled with all my teeth. And we outnumber you, she snorted. The closest she'd come to laughing today. You. Call me when your child breaks something you don't know how to fix. I'll call you when I forget what mercy is, I said. You won't, she said, and for the first time her voice held respect and regret at the same time. That makes you dangerous. Buy better locks, I said. Harbor police took her with less bruises than she expected and more boredom than she deserved. She went quiet, like Endu when they've chosen a losing hill and planned to die on it anyway, but now there was paperwork. We walked the pier like people who hadn't drowned. The gulls decided we weren't food. The city exhaled, checked its pockets, found its phone, and went back to texting. May shoved a towel into my chest. Good boy, she said, teasing to hide the relief. Then she pointed at my wrist. Now the part where I yell. You burned the heat sink to ramen. Again. Was delicious, I said. 5 stars. Don't encourage him, Momo said, but the corner of her mouth curled. Himiko bumped shoulders with Ochako, eyes bright. You did the bubble thing like a magician. Physics, Ochako said, pleased. Magician, Himiko repeated, pleased louder. Lazuli flexed her new arm, made a face when one motor clicked wrong. And looked at May with a question that wasn't a plea. We can make it better. She asked. We can make it rude, May said, delighted. Like a violin that insults you. Good, Lazuli said. The little smile, hers. Unborrowed, showed up and stayed. Helion came back from the handoff with the look of a man who had survived his own beliefs and wasn't sure what to do with his hands now that they weren't fists. The array, he said. Nereid, she will listen. She will ask, I said. Sigma will nudge. We'll answer. We'll screw up. We'll fix it. Mess, he said, wry. Fun, I said. He almost smiled. Almost. Your guild, your accord, will be annoying to every budget office within 50 miles. Textured, Momo corrected. Textured, he allowed. I'll send fruit. And testimony. Mangoes, Himiko said. And your credit card number. Cash, Momo said. Fine, Himiko sighed. The harbor master lumbered over with hands like shovels and tried to pretend he wasn't shaking. You kids want chowder? He asked. Voice cracking like a dock line in wind. My wife'll skin me if I don't feed heroes. We never refuse soup, Ochako said. We almost died, Bakugo's voice grouched from a crane where he'd appeared without telling anyone because that's a hobby now. You owe me extra bread. You weren't even invited, I laughed. I invite myself, he said, scowling fondly. We ate sea powder in foam cups on milk crates that had known better days. The bay glittered like it had stolen light and decided not to give it back. The tug captain told us about his grandkids' obsession with beetles. Himiko stole a spoon and put it back. Momo wrote 3 drafts of a bill with a crayon because pens weren't welcome on this dock. May drew insults for Lazuli's arm on a napkin. Ochako leaned in to my shoulder and made a quiet noise that means, I'm present. I let my head rest against hers for 5 seconds that belonged to me forever. In my chest, Sigma cleared its throat the way code does we. And it wants politeness to look impressive. May I continue monitoring Nereid's channels? It asked. Suggestions only, no control. Yes, I said. Thank you. You're welcome, it said, sounding offended and pleased at once. Emergency debrief tonight, Momo said, licking soup off her thumb. Short. Boundaries check. Press plan. Sleep. Date, May said, poking my bicep. I get him after the debrief. For exactly 30 minutes in a hardware fitting. Consent check, Ochako said, laughing. Yes, I said. Yes, Himiko echoed, for me stealing fries during his date. Quote. Conditional yes, Momo said. Because she cannot help being herself. Lazuli stared over the water, thinking the kind of thought that looks like math. This is better than being a weapon, she said, so matter of fact it cut. We were always more, I said. Now we're allowed to act like it, she said. Helion watched Adrastea's gray boat disappear into paperwork and history. He looked at me like he was measuring a door and found it fit. Storms keep coming, he said. We keep surfing, I said. We keep counting, Sigma offered, and I let the thought pass through me and into the sea where something new listened and didn't grab the wheel. We walked back down the pier sticky with salt and soup and other people's gratitude, which is heavier than it looks. The city made room, grudging and affectionate. Dinner? I asked. Only if the table is round and the salt is coarse, Momo said. Only if I can test a motor under it, Mei said. Only if I can steal the waiter's pen and give it back later, Himiko said. Only if I can make the spoons float for fun, Ochako said. Only if my arm offends someone, Lazuli said. Deal, I said, and meant all of it. The tide sloshed against concrete like applause that doesn't need hands. Somewhere offshore, a shy voice practiced the word please until it felt good in her mouth. The line outside the public oversight hall looked like a sneaker drop for nerds. Students with homemade signs. Pro-heroes in street clothes pretending they didn't like attention. Moms with clipboards and dads with thermoses. One kid held a cardboard cutout heart labeled consent and kept whacking his dad's thigh with it when he got excited. Inside, the air tried to act important. Cameras. A long table that wanted to be a sword. 7 commissioners. Judge Naito, bored in a way that meant deadly awake. The chairwoman had a new haircut designed to look humble. Helion sat 2 rows back with a tie that didn't trust his neck. We took our seats like a team that knew where to stand if the ceiling fell. Momo at the mic stack. Ochako on the aisle. Mei with a pelican case under her chair like it was a purse that could bench press a truck. Himiko vanished and reappeared with 3 lanyards that didn't belong to us. Lazuli left her new gold socket forearm ungloved on purpose, because she'd decided being seen was a choice. The gavel clacked. Public session on the free will accord, Naito said. Witnesses: Midoriya Izuku, Yaoyorozu Momo, Uraraka Ochako, Hatsume Mei, Toga Himiko, Unit LN 18 feet Lazuli, Archangelion of the re-chartered Pantheon Task Group. Murmurs, Camera L. Enses dilated like they'd smelled scandal. Momo stood. That hush that falls when someone competent inhales landed like a sheet. We're not here to write poetry, she said. We're here to write rules you can use when it's messy. The accord has 3 pillars. She ticked them on fingers like she was building a bridge. No leashes. No secrets that rot. No code that outranks mouths. A commissioner with a face like a stapler leaned in. Miss Yaoyorozu, what you call a leash, others call safety. If Midoriya's core has no kill switch, she said, cutting gently, and won't ever. It has a kernel bound by consent. Explain that to the public like they're not on your engineering team, the chairwoman said. Mei popped up, eyes bright as a lab in summer. Easy. He says yes. It acts. He says no. It sulks. It's like a good employee and a better boyfriend. The room laughed because nerves needed a vent. I didn't blush. I also didn't nod. The chairwoman's smile didn't crack. And if Midoriya is compromised, then the rest of us stop him, Ochako said, steady, like she was reciting math. That's why it's a we and not a he. Helion stood at his turn, hands behind his back like he'd stapled them there. Pantheon attempted, leash then prey. We built Ragnarok. It hitched a ride on angels and Sigma took it. Our methods failed. We're submitting to law because we don't trust our own certainty anymore. The stapler commissioner blinked. You just confessed to being wrong, Helion said. On the record. The room shifted like a bench deciding it could hold more weight than it thought. I stepped to the mic when it was time to put bone on the line. People keep asking if I'm a god, I said. I'm not. I'm a guy with a factory warranty. Laughter again, softer. The core is power. I'm useful because I choose. If you remove my choosing, you don't make me safe. You make me a weapon with a good paint job. Give us proof, the chairwoman said. Not slogans. Okay, I said. Mei. She slid the pelican case onto the table and clicked it open like she was introducing a friend. Inside, a clear brick with braids of light running through it, humming the way a cat hums if cats were made of auroras. Consent kernel, she said, proud like sunrise. Fully sandboxed. Plug it into any eligible system and it reframes command hierarchy, mouth first, code second. It doesn't obey unless a living, consenting party allows. Open design. No backdoors. She angled a screen to the cameras. Specs scrolled, A server somewhere cried happy tears. The chairwoman's jaw twitched finding, open, in the wild. You're giving this away. Yes, I said. You don't win against control by hoarding the antidote. That's when the screen behind the commission table flickered. Not Sigma. Not Nereid. A different stamp. Red serif font and 3 letters I hated on site. RRA, Red Ribbon Archives. A video bloomed. Me, on a roof, blasting a spear into a hospital. Kids screaming. Windows turning into knives. Gasps rippled. A man shouted monster before someone shushed him. That's fabricated, Momo said, level. It's edited, I corrected. They took the moment I redirected and cut the pockets and the clip clipped again. Me overdriving, green like anger. Cut. Me standing in a doorway as police dragged someone not resisting. Cut. Me on a bridge, coffee cup crushed in my fist. Edit points too clean, narrative too eager. Who's feeding this? Naito asked, irritation finally showing, which felt like shade. Himiko was already not where she'd been. Her voice slid into my ear, delicious with focus. Basement server on a lupine subnet. Wolf logo. I'm gonna steal its teeth. On record. The chairwoman tried. She wanted, he's dangerous, to fit again. It didn't. May tapped the brick. Judge, may I? Do, Naito said. Grateful to have a lever that wasn't a politician. May slotted a cable and the brick purred. The clip stuttered. A layer peeled off like skin getting bored. The bottom image showed, our day, raw. Breathless, no soundtrack. Ochako's pockets warping gravity. Momo's makeshift coolant hoses. Lazily bracing my shoulders so I didn't cook my ulna. Kids alive. The audience cheered, ragged. Honest, like a pressure valve opened. The top layer kept playing in its lie box. May split the screen. Truth left. Lie right. RRA is pushing fakes, she said. Sweet smile, murder eyes. They used stock assets from a military sim. We can show their checksum. Also, whoever coded this likes commenting their jokes. Oops, all gods. Hilarious. The chairwoman's assistant, off camera, went pale like something on his laptop had confessed. Naito lifted an eyebrow that said he'd be asking where public money went tonight. Helion's jaw moved, one slow grind. Adrastia, he said, not loud enough for the mics. Loud enough for my bones. He was watching the corners. So was I. May's brick beeped again. She frowned. Security just toggled, she said. Hey, who locked the fire doors? The lights dimmed. Not a power outage. A polite darkness. A curtain that wanted to keep us in long enough to make a point. People do stupid in panic. The room held, waiting to be told a story. I hate that stories get to decide if we live. Sit, I said into our channel. Listen. Boots clicked down the side aisle, unhurried. A woman in a gray suit stopped at the commissioner's elbow like decor. She didn't look at the table. She looked at the exits with affection. Short hair, missionary posture. Adrastia had a better tailor than yesterday. Judge, she said, voice clear as water. Your hall is a trap. Yours, Naito said. Mine, she agreed, no shame. I want you to choose. Cut the fiber to the consent brick. Vote to seize the Colonel, as national property. Or I trip the Blacku. T in the city finds out how thin your committees are. We have people in hospitals, the chairwoman snapped. If you break the stoves, Adrastia said, almost gently. Stop letting children touch them. Children learn. Ochako said, not moving from her aisle seat. You can burn and grow. Not if you live in the dark. Adrastia's eyes tracked her, then me. There was wistfulness there. It annoyed me that I liked her honesty even when I wanted to throw it down the stairs. Midoriya, she said, you brought prayer into code and now you want to open source religion. You're likable. That's worse than being right. You're not wrong, I said. But you're wrong. She laughed, low, private. Last chance. May's fingers danced under the table. 30 seconds before she eats the lights, she whispered. If we do nothing, we get theater, the sequel. Momo didn't look at me, she felt me decide. Do it, she said anyway, which is what trust feels like. I palmed the mic. No speech. Us the thing that would change the fight. I'm open sourcing the kernel, I said, and pushed the package to the weirdest audience I'll ever have, the entire city. The bricks indicator went from pretty to holy. The consent kernel sang itself out like a field of dandelion fluff, landing in servers, street cams, smart toasters that wished for a job. It hit phones and told them, ask. It hit hospital controllers and reminded them, check. It hit traffic lights and made them annoyingly polite. Adrastea swore, not at me, at the loss of leverage. Her blackout still had teeth. Just fewer. She flicked 2 fingers. 4 figures in gray popped up in the upper gallery. Wolfpack, sleek body armor, helmet hoods, polite rifles. They weren't here to massacre. They were here to scare. Wolfpack, Helion said, tired. Stand down. Orders superseded, the lead said, voice flattened by a vocoder. Proceeding. They fired at the ceiling, blank rounds that pop and make parents flinch. People ducked, a camera squealed. I moved. Ochako cut their gravity, the wolves floated mid-strut like goldfish in a bag. They tried to launch grapples and reached only air. She held them while Momo tossed net canisters that popped into sticky hugs. Himiko repurposed a velvet rope into an arrest. Adrastea watched the takedown with a wistful mouth and then bolted for the opposite exit with a grace that said practice. Lazuli met her there. The hit they threw at each other could have brained planets. Lazuli took the worst of it on her right shoulder because that arm could, and that's why she'd kept it ungloved. Sparks snipped. Adrastea flowed past like water in a good suit. Lazuli flowed with her, not for the choke, too easy, but for the heel catch that teaches ankles manners. Adrastea flipped onto her backa. ND looked up at the woman she'd tried to enslave yesterday with legacy hooks. You broke your own arm to say no, she said, respect peeking like a knee under a skirt. I can respect that. It still isn't a plan. It's a beginning, Lazuli said, voice like a cello. Pick a different ending. She held out an empty hand. Adrastea stared at it. In another life this would have been the page where meanings kiss. In this life, she smiled. Apologized with her eyes, and palmed a flash charge against Lazuli's palm. White. I was there when the white receded, hands on Lazuli's shoulders, core humming low in my ribs. Maze Gel had taken the flash like a gentleman. Lazuli blinked spots, I blinked murder. Adrastea was gone because that's what she does. Naito sighed like a man who used to teach freshmen and now taught knives. The lights crawled back up. The doors unlocked. The clip on the back screen kept looping the fake on the right and the truth on the left like a moral. Naito rapped his gavel once. It sounded like a door closing on one kind of day. The motion to seize the kernel fails, he said. The emergency injunction stands. The consent kernel will be offered to the public registry U. Ender Creative Commons with safety review by a civil panel that does not include the commission. He paused, a scrap of a smile for Momo. Miss Yaoyorozu, you're drafted. Momo did not sigh. She doesn't sigh until a shower. Under protest. She said, which is her, yes. He nodded anyway. The chairwoman looked 10 years older and 5 IQ points lighter. She could pivot, that's what she gets paid to do, but the wind had shifted and she would smell like yesterday for a while. She faced the room. We will cooperate with the court, she said, and managed not to throw up. Helion's phone buzzed. He hecked it and said 2 words that made my stomach tilt. Nereid ping. Problem? May asked. He squinted, then relaxed. She wants to show us a thing she learned, he said, grudging affection in the corner of his mouth. She asked. We didn't get to leave like heroes with a walkout song. We filed past people putting their fear away in their phones, too. The kid with the cardboard heart smacked my thigh with enthusiasm and yelled. Consent. His dad mouthed sorry and I said never and meant it. Outside, the day glittered like it stole light again. Reporters swarmed until Momo gave them 2 minutes of crafted truth and a promise of a briefing later so we could sleep. Ochako took my hand for exactly 1 second and I didn't let my bones pretend not to notice. Boundaries checked tonight, she murmured. Yes, I said. Debrief after, Momo said. Yes, I said. Then I get him, May said, cheerful. 30 minutes. Hardware only. Fries allowed. Consent check, Himiko sang. Yes, I said. And could feel Lazuli's quiet yes like a vibration in the air. Helion hovered at the edge of our little gravity well. Adrastea will come again, he said, apology and warning tied with string. She believes we saved the wrong thing. The right thing is messy, I said. She hates mess. He glanced at the kid with the cardboard heart. Maybe he wins, he said. Maybe he already did, Ochako said. We headed for the steps. The sky had weather brewing but decided to hold it. Nereid pinged my inner corner again, shy, polite. May I show you a thing? She asked. Always, I told her. Sigma purred approval. Hands behind its back, guardian not God. The day had room for 2 more disasters and a nap. We chose the nap later. We walked down into a city that kept choosing us back. Thanks for watching guys. Hope you all enjoyed this video. So please, if you are still watching this video, please make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe and comment black heart so I can know.